Undaunted, unafraid, complete, Turner, touchdown!
This is 365 Sports.
Protection, there's the shot, coverage, possibly a stumble, it's a house call. Touchdown, Kansas State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Happy feet, downfield, caught, broken tackle, Lassiter, touchdown! Are you kidding me?
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Here's Jennings, he'll launch it downfield, looking for Smith, it's caught, touchdown SMU and Keyshawn Smith.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com. Now here's David Smoke and Craig Smoke.
All right, here we go on this Tuesday. Welcome into the studio. Man, I look like one of those old, like, fluorescent lights or whatever. What is it, like a firefly or whatever at night, right? Well, I love this shirt. It's very, very comfortable. Craig Smoke with the Texas Rangers cap on. And here we go, 365 Sports on this Tuesday. A lot to get to, and we will. One of our guests early on will be UTSA football coach Jeff Traylor, but early on, we will talk. He's a part of that class being inducted on Saturday into the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame. Ron Slaven, who's an NFL agent, he will join us a little after 4 o'clock today. He represents Quinn Ewers, among others. Then also former Stars defenseman Craig Ludwig on the Stanley Cup playoffs and John McClain Hall of Fame columnist. We'll have Andrew putting up different polls throughout the show today. We'll have the results on them a little bit at the end of the show. Let's start with this. Craig Smoke, Brett Yormark, his contract extended. It was through 2027. It has now been extended through 2030. He's pretty much done almost everything right. There's a few things that have been questionable, but he has led the Big 12 into what he hopes and they hope will be the next, frontier when it comes to the NCAA, whether it's realignment, whether it's the college playoff, whatever it is, he is in charge for a little bit longer.
Yeah, congrats to him, and good to have that solidified, to know that as we get closer to what perhaps is the next evolution with all the TV contracts running up here at the end of the 2020s, the beginning of the 2030s, that he'll be around to see all that that entails for the next, Well, near decade. I mean, I'm half a decade. You get older and you think the year's like 2 or 3 years earlier than it really is. So I'm still like in 2023, I think, right now. But yeah, 2025, so really 5 years. But still, though, that's a good amount of time. He's done an excellent job in promoting the league, in building out the league, and trying to give it an identity, and trying to find new ways to make money, and trying to make it as relevant as possible. And some things have worked really well. Some things have maybe not worked so well, or maybe needed tweaking or whatever, but I think he's done an excellent job. There's a lot of people that were poo-pooing all over him because he was some outsider and he wasn't like through the university system and the traditional, I guess, maybe more commissioner route. But I don't know. I think he's been nothing but good for the leagues. I think the Pac-12 would probably disagree, but that wasn't blood on his hands as much as it was on their own commissioners. So he won that duel pretty clearly. And I'm excited to see what he can do in the next few years. I don't know what all outside of, the private equity discussion and things like that are in store for the next 5 years of the Big 12, but they're arguably the number 3 conference when the dust settles again. I mean, that's the hope, I think, for a lot of the fans. But man, there's just so many things that could happen in the next few years. And I think that with that amount of uncertainty, to have your commissioner in place and to be the guy who's been kind of guiding you the last couple of years is a good thing for the league overall. So yeah, congrats to him, and excited to see what he has in store.
I'll put this up for the chat room too. Garrett, if you want to respond, love to. And if you want, I'm on Twitter at David Smoke. We can do that too. But if you put an order right now, and again, a lot of it depends on the timeline and the deadline, the calendar, what is most important for him in order? Making sure the Big 12 is okay the next time there's realignment, which is further down the road. Making sure they are set for the college football playoff, which is going to be next year. And or scratching, clawing, and finding, you mentioned private equity, however it works, more money for the conference, no matter about realignment and the college football playoff.
Yeah, I know realignment's popular to talk about. I mean, there's like 8 teams that apparently have joined the Big 12 that haven't joined the Big 12 that have been reported on the last 2 years like that. So that's just a fun thing to grab people's attention and all of that. I don't know how much that's actually really on the front burner of him or the Big 12. And I think when they have discussed it, they've kind of said they've always maintained the open for business, but it hasn't been in an aggressive way. It hasn't been in a wink kind of nod way like it was with the Pac-12 schools, or just completely out in the open like it was with the 4 prior to that, the American schools, and with BYU. Now, you could always have a trick up your sleeve, but I think they're sitting and waiting their time. And when the ACC turns into whatever it turns into, or takes whatever twists or turns it might take, I think the Big 12 will be ready for that. But I don't feel like that's on the front burner, or that's the most important thing. I think the most important thing is having your spot in the playoff and establishing that as much as possible, and claiming as much territory as you possibly can for yourself. So to me, that would be priority number 1, because with that does come money. But if there's a 1B, and maybe for some people this would be number 1, it would be the private equity, or more so, not that specifically, but just ensuring money. But the only logical way I can think that you do that outside of going and asking for money is to go and earn it, and that would be through the college football playoff and the like. So I think him just entrenching the Big 12 as much as he possibly can in the CFP, in the NCAA tournament, and keeping them as much of a power conference, so to speak, as they possibly can be at this point. That's as important as anything else, because that's what separates you, really. Otherwise, you're just another conference looking for money. Well, everybody's doing that, even the ones that have all of it. And then when it comes to realignment, I just don't see the urgency at this very moment. So yeah, it's all to me about just staking their ground and trying to build on that as much as they can.
It is. They probably every day have the thought about making sure everything leads towards whenever there might be another realignment, whether it's a breakaway or not. But right now, yeah, the college football playoff, and a lot of you have said money in different ways, whether it's private equity, money. That is what has been the at least the response so far in the chat room as well.
Yeah, and my answer falls in line with that, because the more NCAA teams you have in the football playoff or the basketball playoff, that's your straightest way that you yourself can ensure that you make money, that you actually go out and earn it. You're not just handed it because you're a collection of 100-plus-year-old schools that have big fan bases, and so you just automatically kind of have that. You don't have that in the Big 12, so you got to go out and earn it, and you're not going to be given it. And so I think those go hand in hand, money. That it all leads to the same thing. So we're all on the same page there.
Garrett, anything else to add to that? Pretty much. So what's your thought on it?
I mean, I think that honestly, it comes down to if those three, I would say getting into the playoff. I think that's the most important thing, is finding a way for the Big 12 to have one. And if you could squeeze in two teams in the playoff, that's the route you need to go.
Yep.
I think that he's already made it clear that he understands the value that you can gain financially from the basketball tournament, which is why he's gone out and said he's in favor of expansion, which gives the Big 12 more teams to get in there. They finally need to get somebody to actually win it and cap it off. It's great to have all of these teams in there and represent your conference, but you need somebody to step up and get back to winning the championships to bring that revenue in. And I think with that, that's where you'll see that found revenue. I don't think there's a rush out there for adding teams or expanding. Let that come to you. As far as private equity goes, I think once the House settlement comes in and everybody's essentially on more of a level playing field, it's never going to get back to the same way, but I think that will help cap off some of that as much. So I think right now it's more about getting into the playoff and on the football and finding different ways to get teams in there.
Yeah, they have the one in the playoff. It'd be nice if one other team would earn their way into it, and even more if they're possible.
Look,
and then also, of course, already working on how many they get when it does go to 16 starting next year.
I've repeated myself on this. I've said this I don't know, the entire time we've been talking on this show. Just simply adding to add makes no sense. And so unless there's something out there that's just like an obvious, you're not really like keen to go and water things down even further, and that includes schedules, that includes payouts, whatever on the capital part of it. I mean, that's kind of out of my pay range, but I just think, and I've maintained this, the way to raise everything across the board is to win, period. So why is the SEC who they are? I know I'm probably sounding like I'm repeating myself for people that listen regularly. It's because they won a bunch of championships. Yep. I mean, yes, they have the history and the fan bases and all that as well, but the reason we talk about them is not because of their history. We talk about them because they've won like what feels like 15 of the last 17 national championships in football. And so that's how you build up everything, because then in turn, you bring in more eyeballs because you're suddenly more interesting to watch. And then suddenly, what does that lead to? Oh, better ratings. Well, who likes better ratings? The TV networks. Who are the ones that are ultimately paying you? It's the TV networks, right? So, like, winning leads to everything else being better. And so, yeah, therefore, I think that's your main priority, is winning championships and ensuring that you have an equal opportunity to do that with whatever set number of spots or whatever ground you can carve out for yourself. And then that also, yes, does lead to money and everything, but winning leads to all the stuff that you want in the end. So I think that's got to be the most important thing. And I don't know what all he can really do outside of maybe just feeding more money to be a better team and getting more NIL and all of that. But yeah, I mean, it all leads to money at the end of the day. That's his main job, and that's what he's seemingly always been good at. So they've got the right guy in place, I think.
Well, here's an interesting note, and I don't know what this means for the future, but Notre Dame, why should they ever think about anything else, which has always been pretty much the answer to the Irish? They are setting up a 12-year schedule, an agreement with Clemson, 2027 through 2038, 2 national brands, Clemson with new brand-based revenue distribution in the ACC. They will play each other starting not in a couple of years, but starting in 2027 every single year. And remember now, the ACC was already trying to make sure that all of their alphas were going to get scheduled to play Notre Dame as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, good for them. I think this was kind of leading that way with the way the ACC decided to shake up their scheduling and shake up how certain schools are going to be, I guess, fit in the mix of the scheduling arrangements and all that, meaning that Clemson gets to play Notre Dame more often, Florida State gets to play Notre Dame more often, the big schools play the big schools more often, get the bigger ratings, the bigger money and all of that. So, yeah, I think it makes sense if you're the ACC trying to grab eyeballs to have Clemson and Notre Dame as much as possible. I think there is part of me that just feels like this is a little weird because you're sort of rigging your schedule in a way. I mean, you're not avoiding a big game. You're adding more big games ultimately in the long run, but it does suck for some of those other schools that would have had the opportunity to play Clemson that now don't. And you just wonder what that all leads to ultimately. I mean, I think the ones that are probably being left out in some ways are just thankful to be there, so they'll go along with it. But that breeds and plants certain seeds. Maybe not that grows into anything NC State can do about it, or Boston College or whatever, but just the imbalance in the ACC is going to be very interesting to watch. The way they're, going a very obvious direction of placating their top teams, because we have seen that before. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In their case, I'm interested to see in a couple of years what that all looks like.
I saw where a couple in the chat, I know Conundrum said this, but one of the things I looked at, but when I was looking at this schedule, you can go and look at the future schedules. Go to that, I think it's fbschedules.com. In 2025, Notre Dame's playing USC. They play USC next year. They play USC almost every year. Starting in 2027, you don't see USC on their schedule. And possibly the Big Ten, possibly just looking for something new. I don't know. I love that Notre Dame-USC rivalry. The history of it is amazing. I will always go back to the early 1972 maybe, when Anthony Davis had 6 touchdowns against the Irish. I was listening to that game on the radio while living in Japan, and that's always been. I know there's many other like the Bush push with Leinart, and there's many other great games in that rivalry. But I hate to see that rivalry end. But they're not on the schedule to play Notre Dame and USC, at least in the foreseeable future.
Well, no, if you actually read the article on ESPN about it, I mean, Florida State's AD is saying they want to play Notre Dame more too. And they already, play them a bit, but I think they want to play them more. And guess what? Miami's representation says they want to play them more. And they're all talking about how big brands need to play big brands. So they're right, and it'll make for great games. But like when you're North Carolina State or you're Louisville and you play Notre Dame like once every 10 years now because Miami, Florida State and Clemson get to play them every single year or whatever. Like, you just wonder what that leads to. And again, maybe their opinion doesn't matter in the grand scheme. I think that'll eventually turn into something, maybe not for a while, but having the imbalance in the schedule and definitely placating the top teams is something that could go awry. But for now, I think everybody's just happy that the ACC is intact. And has at least a little bit of a future out front to prepare for whatever the real long-term future looks like for that league. And part of that solution is to have the best brands playing each other. So, yeah, it makes sense, and it'll be interesting to see how that works for them.
I wonder if eventually, and I'm not trying to create anything here, but when you have a conference that has unequal revenue sharing, and that's what Florida State, that's what Clemson and others wanted, I wonder how – is that a ticking time bomb? The conference to stay together, otherwise it could have like completely blown apart. I'm glad that they're together. I hope they stay together. I like the ACC, but you wonder if others in that conference don't get a chance to play Notre Dame more regularly, and all the other ones do, what that might mean. Now, Iowa State's Jamie Pollard has been on our show, I would say, at least 6 to 8 times. He was doing a podcast, and this is about the House and the revenue sharing, where teams will get up to $20.5 million to spend. He goes, Iowa State does not have the $20 million. It's like a lot of times everyone just thinks that money comes out of nowhere. If we don't pay it for this coming year, we've got big problems, right? So we're going to have to pay it. Iowa State University will be faced with an athletics program with a huge annual deficit if it wants to stay in the Big 12. And if it wants to have a Power 4 athletics department. Now we can decide we just want to have an athletic program like Northern Iowa, but that's going to have a huge economic impact on the state, on Central Iowa, on the city of Ames, and also this institution. So that's the problem that we are staring at right now. This was on a podcast. They started discussing revenue sharing, which is a good time to go to Brandon Marcello, if you don't mind, Garrett. So earlier this afternoon, Brandon Marcello put out a note that the House versus the NCAA have requested grandfather. This is the plaintiffs. These are the ones who are suing the NCAA and the power conferences, have requested that grandfathering protection for all athletes who lost spots because of roster limits Sources telling CBS Sports as of earlier this afternoon, plaintiffs still await a final agreement from the NCAA. I sent Brandon Marcello a note. He said that the deadline for them to file back with Judge Wilkin, let me make sure I get this correctly, from Brandon Marcello is tomorrow. NCAA and Power Fives, by the end of the day tomorrow, must file a joint response with the plaintiffs, which the Judge Wilkin, will then review. There we are with that story. And again, they got time, but the NCAA, remember the reports from Ross Dellinger, was the NCAA and the power conferences were thinking about grandfathering this in basically on their own decision. And the judge is not going to, she's not going to put up with that. So there's a note from just about an hour ago with Brandon Marcello. I cannot wait for that to be over, but I don't know if it ever will be over, even after, if in fact she does approve it in the end. So there we are.
I understand its importance. I don't really care about all the updates. I just want to hear it when it's done and finalized because this thing's been going on for so long. I understand the importance of keeping people up to date on it, but just me personally, like, wake me up when we get to a finalization of something. I mean, yeah, I've had updates out the wazoo, so hopefully they knock this out and they get it done so that we could turn to the next crisis that faces college athletics because of the inept, or just not even inept, but just like, we're going to get away with this for as long as we want, and now the chickens have come home to roost, and so it's just led to an avalanche of lawsuits and uncertainty and all of that. So that continues on. That's great. I know that's something we've got to talk about because it matters greatly, but I find it far more interesting that a side effect of that is what Jamie Pollard had to say, and that's very interesting comments. I mean, it's not an impossible task to figure out, but I don't know how keen Iowa State, the university, is on helping float the athletic department the way that, Arizona did, and we talked about Arizona a few months ago.
Yeah.
The Arizona schools have done. So I don't know how that works up there in Ames, Iowa, and whether that's a reality that's an option that's realistic or not. But I do wonder, I mean, going into this next era, and if House gets passed and blah, 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 and that all moves on, then what does it look like on the other side? And what does that mean for some schools? I guess I wouldn't have put Iowa State in that category, but I guess I probably should have. I do worry, like, what about a UCF? What about, some of those schools that don't just have money out the wazoo? I know they got a lot of students. I'm not trying to single them out in any way, but I'm just throwing them as an example of, some schools have had a harder time than others trying to raise and be on that level, or they've done a lot in recent years to get to just this level, only to find out that this level is moving up again when you just joined it, like in UCF's case. I don't worry about BYU finding the ability to fund everything because they've got an entire, church nation behind them. I don't worry about most of the other schools in the Big 12, and I really wouldn't have worried about Iowa State necessarily until those comments. But it makes you wonder about certain schools and who could be just hovering above that line and almost like the pull-up bar, trying to keep your head above it to keep, breathing up, or keep your head above water. I don't know how many will fall into that category. That'll be interesting to see.
Well, he could have just said nothing. But one thing we've had Jamie on, and he has never really pulled any punches, and he might get criticized for saying what he had to say. It also rallies the troops if, in fact, there are many more troops that can help them with that budget crisis that they're facing. And they're not the only ones, as you mentioned. One of the notes is that a lot of people misunderstood that the roster limits for those who were objectors to the House settlement, it's not just for those who put in objections about roster limits. It's for anyone that has lost a roster spot, no matter what sport, not just like football and men's basketball, but anyone.
I'm all for the current athletes not just being thrown to the wayside, thrown on the corner along with the trash cans and just be like, sorry about your luck. We just decided it's a different era now and you're not a part of that. I don't think that should be the case at all, where all of a sudden there's just hundreds of athletes that are left dispelled with nowhere to go. I think that's terrible. It's also the clean cut that you would want, though, if you're the universities, to be like, all right, see a swipe and we just move on and all that. So I can understand why it's just not that simple. But at the same time, I do just want to get to a place where there's not people just clinging on to eligibility for as long as they possibly can. I'm all for there being limits of some sort. I know that also leads to probably some other lawyer somewhere going, well, you can't restrain eligibility like that. But I get it in this case, but I do hope we get to a point where the years involved of athletes and I think we finally got past the COVID years basically, but I don't know. I just don't want to see a lot of 7, 8, 9-year athletes moving forward. So I hope that's not the case, but I know that's kind of a different aside to the subject.
All right. A couple of transfer portal notes, 2 quarterbacks, but this one first. Devin Grant has committed to play at West Virginia. He was at Incarnate Word. He goes to the Mountaineers to play for Rich Rodriguez. Incarnate Word's had what is like 3 or 4 times we've now mentioned them.
They're a feeder school at this point.
Yep.
They're a feeder school. Cam Ward kicked it all off, and they've had other guys come and go. It's been a pretty solid program, given that they were not even a program not that long ago. But, yeah, I mean, nice pickup for West Virginia to add somebody at a position that everybody's looking to add on to, even those that have a lot of guys at that spot or in that type of a role. So Rich Rod's been very active. That roster is going to look entirely different, and I'm very excited to see what kind of buzz there is around Morgantown when the time comes. It has not been a fearsome place to play the last couple of years. It's not been an intimidating place to play or a program that you go, oh man, West Virginia. You kind of just go like, oh yeah, West Virginia, and you either reflect back to the Rich Rod years or even the right afterwards, and you reflect to that time period. And that time period, if you look in the rear view, is pretty far back there now at this point in time, but it feels like they got some of that mojo back. So I'm excited to see that, because it felt like there wasn't a lot of mojo the last couple of years. And obviously that led to a coaching change, and you're hoping to rekindle that. So, yeah, they're going to be a much different looking team.
He had 11 TFLs, tackles for losses, also had 8.5 sacks for Incarnate Word, and now he's going to Morgantown. A couple of quarterback notes, and hold on, Garrett. Mailuakai Smith from Oklahoma State, who was a freshman last year, who played a couple of games. I think he started a couple of games at the end for Oklahoma State. He is transferring from Stillwater and headed to play for Ole Miss in Oxford, Mississippi. Played the last couple of games I went online and looked up highlights, also listened for his name to make sure that I got it correctly. And he now enters the portal. I don't know if this was something, Wet Blanket might know, if this was something they expected. I don't think so. Zane Flores right now, who's the high school player out of Nebraska, is right now perhaps on the clock in that quarterback room for Mike Gundy.
Are you positive you said his first name correctly?
Mailuakai.
Mailuakai.
I did say it wrong. Mailuakai, excuse me.
Yeah, I just wonder, there's too many eyes in there to not hit on one of those. So that was a guy that left a couple weeks ago, basically, I guess at this point, right there towards the end of spring ball. And I don't know what level of a surprise that was, but there's been that ongoing quarterback competition, and Lane Kiffin knows quarterbacks, and Mike Gundy does too. So to have Gundy and Kiffin both be interested in your talents, I mean, says something about this young man. I think he was pretty well rated from what I can remember. So we'll see if he gets in the mix there at Ole Miss eventually, but Oklahoma State, that's a team I don't think anybody can really peg heading into this year. I mean, you can try all you want to, but I think it's pretty difficult to really know what's what, and everybody's faith in their opinion is pretty shook after last year. You feel like, I think you pick based off emotion almost, of like, well, Gundy can't be that bad again, and that's your reason as to why they'll be a lot better, right? And maybe that's true, but yeah, they've got some big, I guess, needs to get this thing back on track, and I'm very curious of what they look like this season.
All right, one other quarterback note. This is Whit Neubauer from Mercer. He becomes a part of the Oklahoma quarterback room. And I should say OSU on there. Is that a mistake?
Yeah, that was a mistake.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it got me confused. Like I was the one. I could easily be me. He's now a part of that quarterback room. Of course, John Mateer walking into the team and is a starter for the start of the 25 season out of Washington State. But they get depth with Neubauer going from Mercer, 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns as a true freshman last season.
I just looked at Smith's recruiting profile. For some reason, I thought he was a 4-star. He was a 3-star. But BYU, Arizona State, Cal. I mean, he is a West Coast guy, so it makes sense that they were all paying attention. Florida State, Louisville, Miami, Michigan State, Missouri,
A lot.
Utah. I mean, there's a lot of teams that were after Smith. So, again, you got Gundy and Kiffin both want you to play quarterback for them. I think that says a lot. And then as far as the following story, I mean, yeah, depth for John Mateer, depth for that offense there in Norman to fall back on if need be. Hopefully not. But in case you need to break the glass, there's some more reinforcement for you in case John Mateer needs to sit out of play, and hopefully that's about it.
Craig, you sent this one on the University of Houston. I love this look. I love the color scheme. I know that some don't. Houston alums, donors, players, athletes, whatever, administration, fans, I don't know. It seemed like this kind of gets different mixed results, but I love that look. I think it's a pretty look. You're the one that sent that, Garrett and I, on the new baseball uniforms they'll wear, in fact, tonight against A&M.
I think they're pretty sharp. I think the baby blue, the Oiler blue, Love You blue, however you want to refer to it, Coug blue. I don't know what the official title is these days, but they've really leaned into that. And ever since they basically thumbed their nose at the NFL and said, "Dare you to sue us over this?" They've just opened the cabinet up, and now they're like, "All right, football did it. Now here's, we're going to spread it around to all the other sports." And I think growing up, I hated the color combination, but I also believe that it's like a lot of other uniforms these days. The Buccaneers orange and yellow was hideous when I was growing up, and now it looks cool as hell. And I think it's all about the fit of the uniforms and the fact that you also have guys who look like real athletes nowadays too. It's not like the bartender playing quarterback, like it was in the 80s, and they got the big loose jerseys with like giant sleeves and the stupid looking face mask. But now you put like cool face masks and Titan jerseys on dudes who train 24/7, and they make uniforms look a lot cooler, I think. And so there's so many uniforms nowadays. It's almost like everybody's got an alternative, but I like that Houston's really leaned into this. I know there are some detractors. I saw somebody in the comments last night, and I think it's pretty much been positive for the most part that I've seen, but there were a couple people that were like, "You're not the Oilers. Our school colors are red and white or even navy, right? And we're not powder blue, so make it a school color or lay off." And I think it's pretty strong opinion and not really that big of a deal, honestly. But yeah, it's not 100% approval rating, but it's a pretty high approval rating. I think they'll sell a lot of those caps and a lot of those jerseys if they decide to put those on sale. I think
the red inside of that is what makes it jump out at you. If it was just the baby blue and the white, it wouldn't be nearly the same.
Well,
the red
because
really helps it jump out.
You barely be able to read it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you got to have some kind of darker outline, whether it's navy or red or something else. But yeah, I think those look pretty sharp. I like those. Baseball is also, like I was saying, with like the Buccaneers uniforms. I didn't like when they were wearing the all-colored uniforms in baseball back in the day, like the Royals with the baby blue. I just thought it looked kind of funky. Now I see it, and it looks cool as hell on Bobby Witt Jr. I mean, it looks cool as hell on these guys. So I'm almost surprised they didn't go all baby blue because that's kind of the stylish thing to do. But I think that looks pretty sweet. So I'd feel good rocking those if I was the Cougs.
Kyle Visser, University of Houston fan, he goes, "It's Houston blue. It's a nice-looking uniform, but our colors are scarlet and white. I just asked retired stockbroker, who's a Houston Letterman, if he would give me feedback on that as well." Kyle saying that our basketball teams didn't wear red all year. I didn't know that.
All year, huh? Wow. I wouldn't have. I mean, clearly didn't have thought about that, but that's interesting if that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah, I did not know that. So there we are with that. The baseball uniforms, Houston playing A&M, which is coming up this evening. We have a lot to get to. We'll have Jeff Traylor today. We'll also have Ron Slaven. He's an NFL agent. He's the one that rep Quinn Ewers. There's a long story by ESPN's Todd Archer about all of the process from the time UT season ended, even before that, and what Ewers and the process and what led then, of course, to the big fall throughout the weekend until the 7th round. His thoughts about it. And Craig has off the radar today. And by the way, Ron Slaven on other things, not just the Quinn Ewers journey. Craig Ludwig, formerly a longtime NHL defenseman, played with the Stars. He'll join us today at 5:10. And then also John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, will be a part of the show today at around 5:30. We will try to find, if we do, if not, we can move it on. Don't want to linger out there, that Joe Klatt's top 25, the post-spring, which there will be many of those, but the post-spring top 25, plus Andrew will throw out inside the chat room the polls for what we have going on today as well. Please, if you haven't, click the like and or subscribe button. We appreciate that. We need it. We love it. We appreciate it, too, if you do. So if you do that, we would appreciate that, doing that right now. Retired stockbroker. I don't mind nor really care. A lot of fans love them, though. And, of course, poking the Adams family is always fun if it ticks them off, the former owners of course, the Houston Oilers. So there we are with a response from a Houston letterman in Retired Stockbroker. We appreciate that. When we come back, Jeff Traylor going to be a part of that Texas High School Football Hall of Fame. And, yes, UTSA, all of that, football and more. This is 365 Sports.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Right now at Berg Colgin Ford, we're bringing you an offer that's as big as America. Employee pricing for everyone. You pay what they pay. That means you drive home a new Ford F-150, Bronco Sport, Expedition, Super Duty. From America, for America. Employee pricing for everyone at BK Ford. Looking to sell your vehicle? Get top dollar for yours today. Don't miss out. Employee pricing is available for a limited time. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Experience better at BK Ford.
I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this. This is how I wanna live. I'll never get used to this. I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Jeff Traylor will be at 4 o'clock, and so we do have time. In fact, right now, good that yesterday it was Joel Klatt releasing his post-spring top 25, and a lot of people will do this. There might be 30 of them. Joel Klatt with Fox Sports. This is his. We're going to digest this and kind of have a lot of discussion from both in the chat and, if you want, of course, with Craig and I and Craig and me and also Garrett Ross as well. So, there's a lot of top 25 polls. If you would have said, David, there are 12 post-spring top 25s, which schools will be at the top the most, if not all the time? And you would have thought Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, whoever, maybe one or two others. I did not think that it would be Penn State. But they've had a really good year in the portal. They're coming off a really, really good year, and the momentum is there. Can they match that? A lot of people were surprised. Penn State, Craig, at the top again in one of many polls, and this one being Joel Klatt.
Yeah, I guess it's about time to start kind of diving into these sorts of things. And I can't tell you honestly that I'm super well-versed on everybody in an all-around manner at this point. That's what a lot of the summer is going to be for. But I know there's a lot of excitement about Penn State because of their running backs, because of their quarterback who's already been mocked in a ton of mock drafts as a first-round talent. And, having made an impressive showing and making and winning the playoff game last year. So, I think Ohio State has a lot of questions, although they're not too far there behind them. Michigan, a little bit further down, they've got questions as well. But, then there's Oregon. I got to remember they're in that league as well now. So, Illinois, you add them in, 5 of the top 12. It's pretty salty for the Big Ten on paper. And Penn State, I feel like it's about time for them to go and win the Big Ten, or it's about time for them to go and kind of lead the way. They always feel like they're in that top tier, but a step behind Michigan and Ohio State. And obviously they're a couple steps behind now because both those teams have won national titles in the last 2 years. So is it Penn State's turn? I don't know, but they are a very talented team, and they've got some mojo coming off of last year. So, okay.
Usually, if you look at who's at 1 in Penn State, and then Craig, you mentioned that we don't really have enough information, and there's going to be more changes between now and the start of the football season, but at least it's something to chew on. But 2 of those 4 teams at 1 and 4 are teams that get a lot of pub, especially Oregon, have not been able to finish it off. Penn State has some national titles. It's been a long, long time, but those 2 teams from the Big Ten, and 3 of the top 4, as you mentioned, and 1 and 4 are teams that are salivating to maybe get to the top.
Yeah, I think we have enough information. I just haven't gone over all of it yet to know, like, Penn State versus, let's say, Florida or Illinois. I think that's, again, what a lot of the summertime is going to be, really breaking that down to the studs. But, on paper and what we do know, Penn State's a very solid team. So, they're refreshing, if anything. They're at number 1. It's not just Alabama as it was for 10 years in a row, or Ohio State or Michigan, or on occasion Georgia, and then maybe Clemson or somebody like that. It's been the same kind of handful of teams. So Penn State's new feeling there in that number 1 spot, which is, like I said, refreshing. So we'll see if they can't keep the Big Ten, I guess, supremacy of the last couple of years ongoing. If they could be a 3rd team to win a 3rd title in 3 years, that'd be very SEC-esque for sure.
South Carolina at 11. They're a team getting a lot of love with Sellers, the way they finished last year. There's the first Big 12 team, and then there are 4 consecutive Big 12 teams, 14, 15, 16, 17, with BYU, Arizona State, K-State, Iowa State. There's a team, Baylor, down at 24. I don't see Tech. I know that's going to drive Kim Colton, but he likes that. He kind of likes that chip on his shoulder. But the Big 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, if I would have said, give me the top 4 teams, if there were 4 teams in the top 25, would those have been the 4 you thought you would see first?
Yeah, but I also feel like Joel, like everybody else, doesn't know how to separate the Big 12 schools. And I'm not saying that I can do that right now either. I just think that, again, it speaks to the league being pretty even across the board, and no real way to tangibly measure that somebody's superior to the others like he would have done if he was doing this poll a few years ago. Texas would be where they are, and the rest of the Big 12 schools would be kind of there. And maybe some years Baylor or TCU and obviously Oklahoma would be a little bit higher. But in the last couple of years since realignment, it's basically look at the top 10 and then go look in the middle, and there's like the run of 4 or 5 Big 12 schools in a row. And look what we got here. That's pretty much what it is in the preseason polls now. We don't know how to separate these teams, and we don't think they're better than like the top 5 of the other 2 conferences or a couple of maybe the ACC schools. So they're going to fall in line in the middle and all be jumbled together, and we'll see how they sort themselves out in the season. I feel like that's kind of where everybody is on the Big 12 at this point. So
yeah, what it reminds me of when they group those Big 12 teams together like that? It's almost like how you always have 1 or 2 teams. I don't see that right here in the group of 5 that's somewhere like 22 and 25 when you see a lot of the preseason polls come out. Like, we'll put a couple of them in inside the 20 to 25 range. But
yeah, like the month before the season starts, he'll have and I'm not knock it. I'm just saying, like, that's kind of how all these go now. But yeah, at some point, I don't know who the big G5 favorite is right now, but typically in the years past, like Tulane would be at 23, or somebody along those lines. Boise State. Yeah, where's Boise State on here? They should be like 21 or something, and that would basically be your usual preseason poll. So I think there's to have 5 teams is nice, though. If you're the Big 12, I think there's a lot of good representation. It's jarring. There's no non-power team in here that I see, like not a single one of them. Yeah,
well, no, that's what I was saying. Yeah, there's nobody.
But there's nobody at all. Period. So, yeah, they're not even there at the tail end like they typically would be when you kind of throw them that life preserver and say, here you go. But, yeah, I feel like, the top is pretty strong, and there's not really a lot of arguing to say that K-State should be 6 or something like that. So it's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I don't have any prevailing thoughts unless you have questions you want to ask me to kind of break it down a little bit further. But
I don't see SMU in that top 25, which of course is a part of the ACC, and the way they ended last year despite the loss, I thought maybe they'd sneak in somewhere in the top 25.
How many Big Ten and SEC? So there's Big Ten's got 3 of the top 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm looking at Big 6,
Ten.
So there's 7 Big Ten schools.
7 Big Ten teams. Yep, Iowa being 23. Yep.
And then SEC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 17 of the 25 from the Big Ten and the SEC.
And then there's the 5 from the Big 12. That's 22. Then you have the ACC with Clemson in there, along with
Miami.
Miami is at number 18. So there you have it.
I think Baylor could possibly be right there at the top of that Big 12 list, but so could Iowa State. I mean, again, that's the whole deal as we're talking about with those teams. They all just feel jumbled. So I guess he didn't just put Baylor and make it a whole straight line of just Big 12 schools, but you probably could have, and nobody really would have blinked too much on that. I think there's really no way to have a great feel on true separation there, unlike maybe a couple of the other leagues where you're like, Oregon's clearly a step above Illinois. Like Illinois has got a chance to do, but they're clearly not as good as Penn State or Ohio State. I don't think you can say, Baylor's clearly not as good as BYU. I think they very well might be, like or Arizona State and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's a very power heavy top 25, and I don't know if that's just necessarily how it's going to be moving forward, or we're starting to have slowly now entered the period where that's just the way it's going to be moving forward. And then maybe every once in a while you have a Boise at the end, or a Tulane or someone along those lines, a service academy. But yeah, it's a very power heavy top 25 for sure. And for those who like to break that down even further, they don't want to consider the ACC or the Big 12. That's very power too heavy. I mean, start thinking about the NCAA tournament, all the talks about the seedings and how many could be grabbed by certain leagues, or even when you didn't have the automatic bye in the discussions for the college football playoff. Like, could you see a 14-team playoff with just 2 leagues? Well, yeah, they could probably come up with one, and this isn't far off from that. This isn't far off from that.
If you look in the top 14 teams, other than Clemson, Notre Dame is considered either the SEC, Big Ten, or whatever, being independent, but they're not.
They're ACC.
The ACC. Clemson 5 and 6, and then you have BYU right there at the end. So you have 3 of the 14 would be non-Big Ten or SEC schools that would make it.
Yeah, so I mean, that's
no group of 5 to be seen on this list.
It's just a preseason poll, so I mean, that is what it is, and it'll be different. I'm sure by August there will be somebody in there that's not in there right now, but I don't really have a big bone to pick with the rankings themselves at this point in May. But yeah, Penn State at the top is refreshing. Texas at 2. I mean, that means they're back in the playoff for a 3rd year in a row, which I could definitely see in a 12-team playoff. But the best school in the SEC, Arch is just like they didn't even lose a quarterback, basically. They didn't lose anybody.
Some people think they upgraded.
They didn't lose 14 guys to the NFL draft. That didn't even happen. They're just still there at 2. Now, I think that's a product of what they've done. I also think it's a product of everybody else. It does feel like they lost something substantial. And so maybe it's less about Texas than it is about the others. Just feel like they got dinged a little bit more. But
well, Alabama went through that stretch for a long time, but they kept proving it over and over again.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and Sark's got it going about as well as anybody right now. So I'm not saying they're not worthy of that. It's interesting to see that you lose that many guys. But so did Ohio State, and they're right there. And all those teams around them lost plenty of guys.
Where would Tennessee be if Nico was still their quarterback? Would they be in that top 25?
Yeah, they'd definitely be in the top 25, I think. I don't know where, though. I don't know.
They'd probably put them above BYU just for
probably. Probably, yeah. I don't think they'd be like 20 to 25. I think they'd be back into the top 10, early part of the teens, probably.
Who are and Jeff Traylor joins us at 4. Give me the schools ranked there. This is more college football history or whatever, or trends. Who among the top 25? Because remember, there were times Texas would be at the end of the poll every year, no matter what they were going through for that decade when they were up and down and not very good and sometimes not even involved in the conversation. But they would put the logo in there because of, they're Texas. Who is now a part of this top 25 that's getting the benefit of the doubt in this poll that shouldn't be?
I guess you can make a case for Oklahoma.
Right there at the end.
I mean, I
25.
say that, but I know, I'm a fan of theirs, so it'll sound like but with what they did this offseason, they damn sure better be a top 25 team. I mean, they went and got the best quarterback in the portal, arguably the best running back in the portal. They revamped their wide receiver room. They did all these things, new OC, new GM. I mean, if they're not in the top 25, then I think that's problematic. But, yeah, that could be just a bit of a placeholder. But I think it's if they hadn't been that active, then I'd say that's totally a placeholder, and that's just giving them. But they've done enough, I think, to go, all right, they should be a top 25 team. And then if they're not, Brent Venables is being fired probably at the end of the year.
A&M, Auburn,
yeah,
a couple of people have said them.
I think A&M is – potentially in that category. It does feel like they just automatically get a top 25 bid every year now. And, I mean, Marcel Reed was a good quarterback, but I wasn't, blown away by him necessarily last year to the point of where I'm like, man, they're definitely a top 20 team. So, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know all of these teams the same way I'll know them come, July. So, maybe that's justified.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't want to say that's stupid to have them there, and I might be wrong on that. So I'll be one of those media guys that actually pretends like I don't know everything.
Somebody asked about which of the group of 5, if you put 1 or 2 in there, you always can put Boise State in there. You could always look at the possibility of Memphis. You could always look at our guests coming up at UTSA as teams that might get discussion about being inside. Somebody mentioned Miami. I think Miami's kind of earned what they have. Now they have to replace Cam Ward, and they think Carson Beck will help do that. Look at the bump at 13 with DJ Lagway and the reputation of how much he made a difference in a short amount of time for Billy Napier, who a lot of people thought might even be back this year as the head coach, the Gators in at a number 13.
Yeah, I think he's obviously a great quarterback. I mean, he's already being mocked in the NFL here in the next year or two. So, I mean, that's not really all that surprising to see them there because he's gotten a tremendous amount of.
I didn't say surprising. I know I'm not saying it's surprising, but how much of a jump that he has given that face of that program after where they were entering last year with the schedule they had, and they didn't know yet about Lagway or had not seen him play at the college level. So that's pretty good.
Tremendous talent, and that's what a 5-star future NFL quarterback will do for a brand that's not really making a lot of noise. Is he'll turn it around. That's what great players do, and he's a great player. And so it's not just him solely on his shoulders, but he's the face of it, certainly. And, yeah, they rescued Napier from whatever buyout situation or lame duck type of season. I mean, they're clearly not in the clear just yet, but he's definitely given them a boost that they otherwise or that they were in desperate need of.
All right. Somebody said, where's SMU? I brought that up, Roger. They're not in there.
That's a little bit surprising.
For a question for you, Craig.
That's a little bit surprising to not see SMU there. And there was a couple of others you talked about that I didn't remember what you said.
No, I think we hit them all. I think Iowa's one that you could probably, they're going to be 8-4, right? They're going to be steady. They're going to be solid. And you put them in the top 25 because pretty much at the end of the year, and sometimes Ferentz and company are a little bit better than that.
I mean, it's the Miami thing. Yeah, if you wouldn't have replaced Cam, I mean, you're replacing Cam Ward, so that's a big deal. I think losing like even the Restrepo is a big deal for them, but I can see with what talent they still do have remaining and going and getting Carson Beck, and you're assuming that he's going to be like really good Carson Beck, I can see where you can fit them in, but I can also definitely see an argument of where, it's okay, Miami's getting the benefit of the doubt. I could see that for whoever pointed that one out there.
All right, here's a question for you. Go ahead.
It's interesting that Texas Tech isn't on here.
Okay, here we go. Kim. Kim's a huge Tech fan, a donor and all that, and a viewer of what we do. Is it fair to ask Craig, given his comments about what OU did in the portal, why wouldn't he take the same perspective towards Tech, who had the number one portal class? Is that unfair on my part or not?
No, I mean, I was already thinking it. So before you even saw that question, I was already thinking about Texas Tech as I bring them up there. So that's funny timing. No, I mean, I wonder the same why they're not on here. I think for Oklahoma, they get the SEC rub. I think they get the blue chip rub as well, or the blue blood rub, I should say.
Absolutely.
And so when it comes down to maybe, everything, all things being sort of equal, then that probably gives them the edge to be that 25th team rather than Texas Tech or somebody else that would be in that space. I definitely think that plays into some of these on occasion. So that's where I could see that being a deciding factor. But I would have Texas Tech in here. I don't know who I would replace them with, or who I would put them in place of. But yeah, I think that there's room for them in here somewhere.
All right, though. So there we go. Joel Klatt from Fox Sports and his post-spring top 25, and there'll be thousands of them, it seems like, before it's all said and done. Imagine where everything is now online, doing the Street and Smiths magazine or Phil Steele's magazine, and they are now, of course, they've gone online. But imagine how it's changed everything when it comes to those summer magazines that would start hitting the shelves sometime in around Father's Day, late June, early July. And man, it is a nightmare to try to fill those things together. That's why I almost give up the magazine. It was always nice to have the magazine in your hand. Mike Craven, who does Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, has even mentioned it about the Texas high school programs and how difficult it is. Matt Stepp and company, man, I feel for them because things are changing all of the time. Somebody mentioned Auburn. Somebody mentioned Ole Miss as teams that they that's
Auburn.
Allen's a troll at times, isn't he?
Auburn was somebody, though, and I mean, that's what I was trying to say. I couldn't remember everybody that you rattled off there because we talked about like 3 or 4 teams, and I was trying to frame them all in my head and put them in order. But Auburn was one that jumped out to me that I was like, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, that could be who Texas Tech replaces, honestly.
The Ole Miss is a good one, too. I think losing Jackson Dart and stuff, that's a
they lose quite a bit. I think that's a little bit of SEC rub. I think that's the media loves Kiffin, honestly.
Yes, they do.
20's okay with me with them.
Huh?
20 for Ole Miss, okay.
But they do lose Jackson Dart.
No,
I guess you're assuming, though, that he's the quarterback whisperer, so you're not really all that worried about quarterback. So I could see Ole Miss, but certainly Auburn was one that jumped out, and I go, I don't know. I mean, you're assuming a lot with Jackson Arnold, and last time we saw him, it was just ugly. Not all his fault, but just ugly in general. So, yeah, Hugh Freeze going through a lot of health issues, and just, I don't know that you can just bank on them the way you can some of these other schools. So if you wanted to flip out them in Texas Tech, I could see total justification for that, or just, bump them out and bump everybody behind that up one and put Tech in there. I could see that.
Ole Miss's depth chart at quarterback, speaking of Jackson Dart, of course, is the young kid, the redshirt sophomore. It's Austin Simmons out of Florida. They have Trinidad Chambliss. They have Smith, who just announced that he's transferring from Oklahoma State, or the report was, and then A.J. Maddox, a redshirt freshman. So they really, I've heard a lot of good things about Austin Simmons, as it looks like maybe QB1 for Lane Kiffin and company. All right, coming up, Jeff Traylor, head coach at UTSA, longtime, incredibly successful high school football coach. He joins us. He's next. This is 365 Sports. The Baylor Alumni Fan Engagement Department and office run by Paul Thorpe and also Doug Furch, Baylor University umbrella, that's part of it. They help set up any kind of watch parties. There's nothing going on right now. There's some sports that are still kind of getting to that, getting into the NCAA tournament part. But when it gets to football season, if you want to have a watch party, and whether you're a Baylor fan, and every school has an alumni type of group that does this, set them up outside of where the game's played, whether that's in your hometown, whether it's any of the Big 12 cities, and you have a group of a lot of alums, boosters, et cetera, or fans who want to watch a game coming up this fall. They will help you publicize where you will be, whether it's a sports bar, a restaurant, or wherever that might be. At Baylor, it's Paul Thorpe and Doug First. They do a great job. It's the Baylor Alumni Fan Engagement. Go to baylor.edu.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions, IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Going to be a hell of a summer for Jeff Traylor. Not only, of course, what he does is he oversees the UTSA football program, but also in July, he's going to be inducted into the Texas High School Coaches Association Hall of Honor. And this Saturday will be inducted into the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame, the event on Saturday evening in Waco. Jeff Traylor joins us. Craig Smoke with me, too, on 365 Sports. You earned this. You have had an amazing record as a head coach at the high school level. We'll get to the college part later on. What does this mean to you?
Yeah, it's as special thing I've ever got to be a part of, just because of how much I love the state of Texas and how much respect I have for the coaches in my own career and the ones I've tried to model my own career after. It means a lot that I'm going in with you, to be very honest. You know my career here better than anybody. You knew me when I was a snot-nosed kid in my 20s, working for Danny Long, who I thought was, the worst boss you could have, because he was mean to me all the time. I thought you were, I'm a little small town kid from Gilmer, Dave, as you know, and you and Smokey.com. I just thought that was like the worst thing in the world. And Danny was just so good for me. Speaking of Danny Long, who I work for, just to explain to me how you were good for the game and you meant well and everything you were doing was for all of us. And I was just so young and naive. I didn't understand media. I didn't understand much, David, to be honest. And now here I am 35 years later, 30 years later, and going in with you, and it's a tremendous honor.
No, it is. And that's something that I will absolutely mention on Saturday about being connected to the East Texas pipeline with what you did with Gilmer, Jacksonville with the legacy of the quarterbacks and the McCowns and much, much more. I was on the phone. Danny's speaking at an event I have next Wednesday. You mentioned how he was maybe the meanest boss you could ever imagine, but my goodness, he's also another one that had great success. What did you learn from him?
Well, he worked for Dennis Parker.
Yes.
And Dennis had such an unbelievable influence on Danny that Danny thought he should be Dennis. And you know, why probably me, you, and Danny all get along so well. I'm never short on an opinion. And even in my 20s, I had opinions. And I used to tell Danny, you're not Dennis. You're like one of the nicest people in the world. You're trying to act like somebody you're not. Just be you. You're really, really good at your job, but you're not good when you act like Dennis. He would tell me to shut up, you know, and all the mean things he'd say to me and not ever listen to me. But I do know I didn't think he was very good at his job because I was in my 20s and knew everything. And when I got the job at Gilmer and I turned 30, David, I think I called Danny every day on the phone for probably 3 straight years, just asking him how to figure out this problem. A lot like my father, Danny got a lot smarter the older I got, for sure.
When did Randy McCowan, everyone knows Josh and Luke, and Randy is an incredible businessman now, but he was the first of the 3 McCowan legacies, then Josh, and then Luke, who might have been better than all of them as a gunslinger at La Tech. When did you know, and when you went to Jacksonville, it's about the time Randy might have been, a senior? Or was he gone that year?
Yeah. No, Danny actually hired me. He literally told me he had these 3 great quarterbacks in the McCowans, but he couldn't get any kids to come play receiver for him. And he knew I was a really good basketball coach that loved to play basketball. And that was pretty much my job description. I need you to come in here and coach receivers and DBs, get in that gym, and make sure we've got great receivers for these boys to throw the ball to. So that was my job description, pretty much. So I got in there with Randy when he was at the end of his career. But I had Josh. I was Josh's 9th grade head basketball coach. I was Luke's junior high quarterback coach, as well as I had those boys. I had the quarterback 7th grade up, and then Coach Turner took over when they got to the varsity period. And Owen, who's my quarterback right now,
Yep.
McCowan, his father was Josh McCowan, and my son Jordan is now the co-offensive coordinator for the Vikings, working with Josh McCowan, who coaches the quarterback with the Vikings. So this thing has come literally full circle since Danny hired me in 1993.
You have always been, as you mentioned, confident. You always had an opinion. You started out at Big Sandy, then Jacksonville, then you got your opportunity, and you went back to your alma mater at Gilmer. Was there a moment, I don't know, maybe in the first game, I don't know if you lost that first game or not, was there ever a chance you went, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this?
Yeah, I stayed on the John. We played Gladewater the very first game of my career. And you know how that is. Back then, they could not beat Gladewater. And if you beat Gladewater, you had a lifetime contract at Gilmer. That's our arch rival. And they were ranked like number 3 in the state. David Hoosman was the coach. Way more qualified. Way more great wins than Jeff Traylor had ever had. And we upset them that night. It's shockingly. And we played almost perfect. I didn't understand rivalry games back then, David. I thought we were going to play that well every week. And then we went to Hooks and played Steve Wells the very next week, and we were way more talented. And Hooks beat the heck out of us. We just weren't ready to play. And I learned just so much so quickly about rivalry games, and we just weren't a program yet. We won 6 games that first year, which was the first winning season in a decade, but we just weren't a program. I always knew they had the talent, David. We always beat Dangerfield and Gladewater in junior high and JV in 9th grade. We never could beat them on the varsity. And at a young age, David, I knew Jack Murphy and Dennis Alexander were the difference. And I wanted to give that to my community so bad. I just didn't know how. But God sent me to Jacksonville to learn from Danny Long and Matt Turner and Wayne Coleman and Dennis Parker, quite frankly. And I got to bring that kind of version back to Gilmer. And we basically played basketball on grass for about 8 years. Or turf. We got turf finally in Gilmer, as you know. And that's all I knew. And I don't think I even learned how to coach for probably 2008, where we actually started working defense and special teams and me becoming a really good head coach. Because we were scoring a lot of points, David. We couldn't stop anybody. We just happened to be winning state championships because I had better players than everybody else.
When you were at Gilmer, you were a center, right? Were you an offensive lineman?
I was a quarterback until my junior year. Then I was a tight end my junior year. And then we hired a coach that came in and ran the triple
Oh,
I.
my God. Yes, he did. I remember that.
Ron Dupree. And we had no tight ends. I never played defense. I could not run a 4.6 40, which was the requirement to play. So he went with my best friend, Gary Palmer. And I had an offensive line coach named Joe Black. There was an All-American linebacker, won the national championship in Arkansas. He said, Jeff, I'd like you to play center. I said, I'm the backup quarterback. He's like, yeah, but you're 6'3", 210. You know, you can play center. And I'm like, all right. I was the point guard, played third base on the baseball team, and my dad would not let me quit. So I had no choice, either sit on the bench or play center. And I ended up being first team All-East Texas, All-State center, and I was the backup quarterback as well.
Multitasking as positions. When did you graduate? Was it 85 or 86 or 87 from Gilmer? I got a question to follow that up with.
Yeah, 86. I graduated 86.
So you played offensive line. You know that the next year, 86, Jefferson won the state title, beat Cuero down at Kyle Field, and you had to face a guy named Jerry Bennett. You were a player, and the late, great Jerry Bennett, who passed away just over a week ago, Phil's brother, Phil brought that up to me, and I think even Danny Long brought that up to me. When did you have a chance at all to pick Jerry Bennett's brain, even though the age difference was the way it was, and he was a character, no doubt about it?
You got to remember, when I got hired in 2000, that was right at the end of Jerry's career at Jefferson. I believe the last game he coached at Jefferson was against me at Gilmer in 2000. Now, he might have come back around and done some more things after that, but I'm almost sure that was his last one.
Yeah, he went to Linden. He went to Linden Kildare, and Shock Linwood was on his team at the end of like the 2009 or 10 season. But yeah, he was. You're right, on his last year at Jefferson.
And my favorite meetings were the year before that when I got hired, and just being in the DEC meetings and just listening. You got to remember, I'm in there with Dangerfield, Randy McFarland, Spring Hill, Steve Gaddis, Jefferson, Jerry Bennett, and I'm 30 years old, David. And I was like a kid in the Candace story with all my freaking heroes in there. And then I started thinking, how in the hell am I ever going to beat these guys? I'm 30. I don't even know what I'm doing. And we're not even any good at Gilmer. How am I? That first year, Randy McFarland was ahead of me 49-0 at halftime. And I remember calculating that would be 98 if he kept it up. And then Steve Gaddis was ahead of me 28-0 at Spring Hill at the first quarter. Gilmer's not what it is now. It was not that in 2000. We've come a long way in 25 years, David.
No question about it, and you have as well. One more high school question, and then we'll get to the UTSA Roadrunners and football program. You're going to be in this class. You're going to be in the Hall of Honor. I've asked you what it all means to you. You're confident, and yet you have become, as I've gotten to know you, you're not more humble, but you're very humble about what you've accomplished. Are you better with that than you were before?
It was all insecurities, David. I was just young and fighting and didn't know any better. Didn't have great examples to really teach me. And I've been blessed, like for Danny and Matt and Wayne to show up in my life right when I was 23, 24. The McCallans were huge. Their parents, Robin and Pat, were huge influences on my life.
Yep.
And I've just been blessed. And the Lord has kind of worked some miracles in my life that have really just taught me some things along the way. And I'm a much better version. I told Dr. Compost and President Ames when they hired me, they're definitely hiring the best version of Jeff Traylor at this point in my life, no doubt, David.
You've won state championships and been in a lot of them. I'm proud that you're going to be a part of this class, and you're right. It makes it even more special for me, too, that you will be one of those that's inducted on Saturday. Football, man, I mean, college football, there's all sorts of stuff. No different than 3 or 4 years ago when we would have talked to you. Some things have changed. The portal is still a mess. NIL is who knows what it is. It's not what it was supposed to be. Tampering is still there, and I know you get tired of talking about that. Do you have any idea what the rules are in college football right now?
There are none. This is the first year I've ever lost 3 kids in the month of May. I lost my kicker.
Yep.
I mean, there's just no way to prove any of it, David. The stuff's the people are too good at doing it. I called every head coach that tampered with my kids. Most of them returned the calls. Only one of them did not tell the truth. And, we don't need presidents, NCAA, and ADs to monitor us if we'll all just do the right thing. We shouldn't be messing with other kids' rosters. If they get in the portal, then it's all fair game. But we should not be tampering with other people's kids. Bad ball. It is what it is. I'm not going to speak on it. I'm not going to give names. I know who I called. They know who called me back. The man that lied to me knows which one lied to me. It is what it is. And until we get control of the game, it's going to stay that way. And it's sad, but it is what it is.
Coach, how difficult is it to go through spring ball at this point, and how do you go about trying to do the best you can to maximize your individual players, but your team as a whole, while also having to look over your shoulder the entire time of just what's that experience like going through spring, and what value does it carry compared to maybe 5 years ago when you weren't constantly looking over your shoulder?
Well, I wish we could get it where it was January so you know who you had in the spring. You'd like to work your team out and know that's going to be your team for the fall. We lost our corner, we lost our running back, and we lost our kicker during spring ball. We had to cancel kickoff practice, so we don't have a kid that could kick it off because he's not here anymore. That's all I'll say. Wonderful kid. These are not the kids' fault. These are adult problems. These are not kid problems. We've created these problems, and that's something I wish we could get back under control. I'm all for the kids getting to go wherever they want to go, but man, we should be able to do that in a timely manner. Right when the season's over, and then they can go do what they want to do. Whoever we have in the spring, we should be able to coach that and know that's going to be your football team for the fall.
Okay, I'm going to follow up one more question then, and I want to get to the team that you have and you hopefully will have when you go to work out in August. If, in fact, you have somebody trying to contact your players, or when you do, how then you react if you lose somebody, and do you have to wait to see who is in the portal? Do coaches get together and look around? How does that work for somebody who is getting rated?
Well, they don't contact the kid. They're not stupid.
Right.
They're going to call.
Yeah.
They're going to call a third party, an agent, or maybe the kicking coach, whatever that might look like. You're not going to be able to catch them and prove it. There's no way they're going to do that. So that's just it. You named it. And I'm not even sure the head coach knows as much anymore, as now you've got general managers. They've got their 6 or 8 kids working for them. One of those 6 or 8 reaches out to whoever their contact is in that area, lets them know they're looking for a certain position. You got agents now speaking to all this stuff, and the agents are shopping these kids around. It's all third party. It's not coach to player. It's going to be someone in a department, probably personnel, speaking to a handler or an agent. Then it's getting the message to the kid, a kid back to agent, kid back to handler, back to someone in the department. Unprovable.
All right. You have McCowan back at quarterback. You have a really good football team, because I know Jeff Traylor would not have one despite the losses. Who are you as you enter the offseason? Because it looks as if the non-Power 4 schools, that UTSA, Boise, Memphis, you can go down to a couple of others, that those are always going to be good. Is that the case with you again this year?
We were blessed. Yes, I did lose my running back, my corner, and my kicker, but I kept my quarterback, Owen McCown, who finished the year so strong. Those 3 tight ends I have are as good as anybody in the country. They were tampered with all spring. They all stayed. McCune at receiver, Amador at wide receiver, all tampered with. They all stayed. My whole offensive line is back. I did lose my starting center, who's with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I lost my tight end, Oscar Cardinals, but he got hurt early in the year. He went to the Arizona Cardinals, so we ended up playing the young tight ends, and we were just so fortunate they all stayed. We don't have the money those P4 schools have. All those kids stayed for about a fifth of the money they would have made at other places. But I know Owen had a lot to do with that. And we finished the year so strong. We started off very rough, but we were as good as anybody in the country at the end of the year, winning 4 or 5 out of that last 4 or 5 games. And to win another bowl game. And I just know the way we finished it and having Owen back had a lot to do with that, David.
Was last year the hardest season you've been through?
Yeah, we just blew so many games at the end. We were undisciplined. We were poorly coached. That was all on Jeff Traylor. I let some things go, David, that I shouldn't have to keep some great players. I didn't want them to get in the portal. So I let some things get away that I'm embarrassed with. Nothing like major. I'm talking about academic being on time, the tutors, the training room, the way we practiced. I mean, just certain things I turned my head on, and really embarrassed I did that, and I'm not doing that again, David.
Yeah, it's because there's a fine line of does that ever work out well when you have to turn your head or you have to let some things slide and players take advantage of you?
You would think I'd know better. I just never had been put in that position before, and I just compromised too many things. And it's shame on me. I'm just not doing it again. We don't have a motto. When we started out in January, we always have a motto. I said, look, the motto this year might be transfer portal. I'm going to try to put all your butts in it. I'm not turning my head. We're going to coach your tail off. We're going to be a well-disciplined, well-coached football team. We're not going to be undisciplined like we were last year. And that was all on Jeff Traylor. That was not the kids. That was all on Jeff Traylor.
How hard is it to prepare for a team, a military academy? Army, of course, runs the triple option. Navy ended up having a great run at the end. Or Air Force or whoever. When you meet someone like that, how hard is it to prepare for them? And do you actually start and do a little bit during the summer for when that game comes along?
Yeah, we try to get a couple of workouts in. We've been unfortunate. We played Army every year. So we have a tremendous respect with Jeff Monken. We've got a great rivalry going with those guys. Mm-hmm. It's a one-possession game every year we play them. We played on the last game of the year this last year and played our tails off up there. And it was freezing cold, and my kids really got after it. If the head coach hadn't gone for his own minus 22, we probably would have won the game, but the head ball coach made a dumb call and cost my kids the ball game.
You've blamed yourself for a hell of a lot today, buddy.
Well, it is what it is. Brother, those guys are a direct reflection of me, and I've got to do a better job coaching. I'm just telling you like it was. I'll watch the video too, brother. Mm-hmm. It's like when I speak to the media after the game and everybody's like, how do you take all those guys getting on to you like that? I'm like, hell, I was saying a lot worse than that to myself in the headphones the moment I made the decision that didn't work.
Yeah, the hardest critic. You played Texas last year. You've played them before. We know they're in a role. Now you're opening up with A&M and Mike Elko. Do you have to play those games? And not that there haven't been times you've taken some of those guys down to the mat. I'm not specifically those schools, but you have beaten people like that. Is that just something you have to do because of the budget and revenue?
Yeah, we got to get that $2 million. We won't be able to stay afloat, brother. I mean, yeah, we were fortunate. We beat Illinois. We had the game-winning drive versus BYU. Got it called back for holding. It is what it is. Houston beat us in triple overtime. Texas, we played them tough, and then they beat the heck out of me last year. So those have been our P4 games we've gotten, and now we got A&M this year. So, good luck. But it's a lot of fun when you take their $2 million and get on a plane and win the game and come home.
No kidding.
We've done that too. So hopefully we can shock the world. But I know Coach Elko will have those guys ready to roll. And there's no place like playing at Kyle Field. That place is just incredible.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I'll see you Saturday night, Jeff. I love you, man. See you soon, and congratulations on all the stuff you're getting and the honors, including this weekend.
Hey, David, that guy named Patrick Mahomes wasn't too bad of a player either. I think he's going in with us as well. He's all right.
That's right. Craig did his games on the radio when he was at White House High School, and he will be there too. Patrick Mahomes, of course, RG3. Yep.
I coached against him when I was at Gilmer and White House, and then I was at the University of Texas with Charlie, and we had to play him at Texas Tech. So I've seen Patrick way too close, too much. But I can't wait to see him in a more calm setting.
Coach, could you – I mean, you probably – nobody could predict like multiple Super Bowls before age of 30 and all that, but did you sense that he was different? Like I remember watching him and just thinking like, damn, I cannot believe there's not just scouts galore here. It was only his junior year. He had just transitioned from like safety, I think the year before. But when did you kind of get a glimpse of like, this isn't just like a really good player. This is like a guy who's pretty incredible.
Well, I remember it very well because he was just so freakish, but he was a great baseball player as well.
Yep.
And Cliff Kingsbury was the one recruiting him, and Cliff and I were very close and still are very close. He would always ask me what I thought about him. He was just such a freak. I just didn't think he'd go play football. I thought he'd play baseball. And Cliff always told me, I think I can get this kid to come to Lubbock and play for me. Hell, Cliff's been a ton. Cliff was right on those great quarterbacks, and he was right again.
Yeah, he was. Jeff, thank you, buddy. Jeff Traylor,
You're the best.
TSA football coach. We'll see you Saturday. Great question, Craig. I'm glad that you brought that up because I remember at times Patrick's father, who I've known for a long, long time, would text me and go, he was asking about whether at the time Baylor would ever offer him because he didn't have a long list of offers. And, of course, their quarterback room at the time was really, really good, even with as good as Patrick Mahomes was during that stretch of his career.
Yeah, no, I didn't bring that up. You brought that up, or he brought that up. I was just following up on that. One of y'all brought that up.
No, I brought up the fact you did his games. Yeah. You did. You did his high school games.
Yeah, I did. I don't want to, like, get any stolen valor from that. So, like, I was a part of it anyway.
I mean, you were just
but
a part of
I
it.
saw him, and I thought he was pretty incredible, and he was doing stuff that I'd never seen before, and it was just impossible to know that it was even greater than what you thought it was, and that it was somehow going to turn into what it's turned into all these past few years. It's just, it's an incredible story. His rise to being maybe the greatest quarterback that's ever played the game, from just being the guy who's doing playground-like stuff that he's still doing in the NFL, but he was doing that in high school. You can imagine what that looked like. And I do remember vividly that he brings up the baseball thing. That was the whole rumor around Tyler, Texas, where he's from. White House is a suburb, so he's from Tyler, White House, but the talk for years was about what great athletes Patrick Mahomes had as kids, especially Patrick.
Yep.
And Patrick is going to be a baseball player just like his dad, and he's really good at football. He's really good at basketball, but like he's going to probably go be a major leaguer like his dad, and that was just the assumption. And so kudos to Cliff Kingsbury for seeing it differently and not just saying, oh, well, I guess he's going to go play baseball then, and actually going, no, I'm going to try to get him to play football, and look what he created as a result of that. That might not otherwise have happened. Maybe Patrick, I don't know, Patrick seems like pretty entrepreneurial. He seems like he would have probably found his way eventually, but I do remember the talk around town was always that Patrick was going to go play in Major League Baseball or be a baseball player, and football was clearly the route that he needed to take.
I'm not sure what that buzzing noise is. It may be my headsets. Let's break here. We'll come back with NFL agent Ron Slaven. This is 365 Sports. Just go straight to the break, Garrett.
Alan Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary and trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget, from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Alan Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560, or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC. An equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Can you hear me at least?
It's definitely your mic, Smokey.
It's definitely your mic, is what he's saying. So you're talking into it, nobody can hear you but a buzz. So we're going to have to figure that out. And I don't know how we're going to do that because we got to – do you want to just take my spot? All right. Here we go.
That's rather awkward. We're sorry about that. Ron Slaven, NFL – got it, Garrett? I don't hear myself at all. Ron Slaven, NFL agent, with us on 365 Sports. There was a story, Todd Archer, who we've known for a long, long time, a story about the journey of Quinn Ewers, UT football quarterback, and how, of course, the weekend went. Ron was quoted many times. I'd known Ron since he represented some players, even back in the day with Leighton Vander Esch. Joins us on 365 Sports. Thanks for your time. What is it like after the draft, whether you have one or multiple players who are prospects for the NFL? Once it ends, do you decompress? What's that like?
It's pretty exhausting just because you go, it's the 3 days of the year that I don't feel like I'm in control. And I feel like I'm pretty organized. I get a lot of good information. I have the relationships I have with teams because I've been doing this now 26 years. But when these teams are picking players, there's not a lot of control. You don't really know, what somebody might be doing behind closed doors. If it's the general manager that's actually making the pick, or the coach or the offensive coordinator wants to grab somebody. So a decompression, it probably happens for about 48 to 72 hours. Then it's back to work and back to figuring out what I'm going to do and who I'm going to recruit for the following year.
So with the story with Quinn, and there's a lot of great quotes from you, but also the story of Quinn as he was leading up to the draft from the time that he was playing at Texas. I always thought of him, first of all, he has an unbelievable throwing motion. I know he got battered at times. I also know he's tough as hell because he kept coming back. But obviously he didn't, you didn't, and I didn't expect him to fall the way he did. How, in the end, would you say he handled all of it? And then I'm going to get into some of what was going on early in the draft that kind of made you like one of those uh-oh moments.
I mean, Quinn Ewers is probably one of the best human beings on the planet. And this isn't agent talk. This is a guy that I've known now since he was, freshman, sophomore in high school. The things that he endured because he threw a football 88 yards as an eighth grader and became the highest recruit of all time probably isn't fair to any kid. And the world that we live in now, where the internet controls everything and people can say what they want to say and there's no rebuttals anymore, or you can't defend the kid or you can't defend yourself. He took a lot of hits for a lot of misinformation. People said, oh, he left high school early and got paid by Ohio State. Wasn't true. Ohio State gave him no money. NIL wasn't even a thing. It became legal, and within 30 days, people thought Ohio State had a program set up. They didn't. He went there for two reasons. One, he was told, come up here, you can compete for the job right away, and Quinn's a confident kid. But two, the memorabilia deal, which was, it was a big number, and it's life-changing money for a 17-year-old kid. The second part of it is then he goes to Texas, a program that was 5-7, lost to Kansas. People are already saying Sark needed to get fired. And he goes down there and they build that roster around Quinn. If you ask anybody in those recruiting classes that came once Quinn got there, they came because they had a quarterback, and Quinn was the biggest name in all of recruiting for a long time. He was the highest rated guy ever. That isn't his fault, because 247 and on 3 and the recruiting places said he was the best quarterback to come out ever. So he endured a lot. He turned a program around again that went 5-7, lost at home to Kansas, and people were calling for Sark after year one. He goes from 8-5 to winning the Big 12, throwing for more yards than anybody in the Big 12 championship game history. And then first year in the SEC, they said they're going to struggle, and he leads them the SEC championship game. And if it wasn't for a few missed kicks, they win that game. Quinn threw for 353 yards, and they said he had a bad game, which, that was just kind of where his career went. It didn't matter what he did. It was never enough. And then he's got the biggest name in the history of football probably behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Not just Arch, but because of the uncles and the grandpa. And I mean, his dad's on TV, and the dad never even played football after he got injured. So the same thing that Quinn kind of had to deal with a little bit in the draft is, people can say that I made that up, or, the word chicken shit, whatever, maybe shouldn't have been used. But to me, it's okay. So there's starting quarterbacks in the NFL that didn't really want to have a name like Quinn behind them, because in Texas, people got real used to hearing Quinn's name. And what Quinn endured with having a Manny behind him, it's stressful for a starter. The head coach has to answer questions every week of, oh, when are you going to put in the backup? The Dr. Pepper commercial that we did, we tried to make a joke of it. Quit talking about the backup. We're the starter. We just won the Big 12, and now we're going to try to win the SEC championship and go to a national championship. So there definitely were some quarterbacks that went to the GM in the league, in the NFL, and said, if you're going to take a quarterback late, I'd rather not have it be him. And that's not fair to Quinn. That's probably not fair to the general manager to be talked to like that. But that's the world that we live in. And then I know some people are probably like, oh, he wasn't even that good, or his name's not that big. I don't think people understand that the engagement numbers that Quinn Ewers had over the last 3 years are off the charts. Who in college football or the NFL had national commercials with EA Sports, Dr. Pepper, Uber Eats, Hulu. I mean, I could go on, a private jet deal. Quinn didn't go chase those deals. Those deals came to Quinn because of who he was and the engagement numbers and the person that he is. Companies don't choose to work with people that are bad people. And if they do, they fire them real quick because they make mistakes. Quinn's been the perfect person to be the face of a lot of companies over the last 3 years. So when you see somebody like him all the time, there's some guys that, you don't want that guy behind you, because the minute you have a bad game, they're going to ask for him.
So you're telling me that there were quarterbacks in the NFL that you learned had gone to their general manager or whoever and saying that they would rather the team not take Quinn? And is that one of the reasons why he dropped as far as he did?
Well, no, there's multiple reasons. One, last year there's 6 quarterbacks that went in the first round. So,
right.
So Cam Ward and Jackson Dart are the 2 guys that go in the first round this year. Jackson Dart, the Giants fell in love with him. Everyone thought that they liked Shador. Obviously, they didn't. They liked Dart more. And then the next 2 teams that were high on Quinn were the Saints and the Seahawks. Well, they were high on Quinn, but they were also high on Tyler Shuck and Jalen Milroe. So now you get into round 4 to 7, and when you're taking guys 4 to 7, you're taking a backup or a third guy. So when you get to that point in the draft and you're taking a position like the quarterback, I mean, there's only 13 total taken. There's some teams that wanted to be careful with, well, this guy's going to be our third string guy anyway. It's a lot easier to have an FCS quarterback or, a guy that's got 2 torn ACLs as our third string quarterback than it is with a guy that has a name like Quinn Ewers.
Ron Slaven is the agent for Quinn Ewers, but he's been an agent in the NFL for quite some time. And in fact, Ron, was it when I got to know you when it was Denzel Mims, the wide receiver at Baylor? Is that when we first talked?
Well, yeah, so I had Denzel Mims, James Lynch, Terrell Bernard, Treston Ebner.
Yeah,
I had a good little run there at Baylor.
You really did. So what's Quinn's thought process now? He's been drafted. They're about to start, the NFL schedule. I don't even know what it is anymore when it comes to getting to the Miami. Is he as motivated? He's always been motivated. Where is he mentally now after he's been through what was this basically pretty lousy and crappy weekend, although getting drafted is still the end result?
Well, the other part of the story that nobody knows is he got his wisdom teeth out on April 17th and ended up getting a dry socket. So not only has he fallen in the draft, his mouth is throbbing, and he said he hadn't been in that kind of pain besides the torn oblique in his life. So that was going on. But this is, he leaves in Miami on Thursday, May 8th, and he'll be down there until the end of June doing rookie minicamp stuff and OTAs. But this is the first time in Quinn Ewers' life where he's not the number one guy, where the pressure isn't on him. And he just turned 22 years old. So that's pretty crazy to think that for the last 7 years, he's always been called the best guy. And think about the Michigan game this year. After the Michigan game, Mel Kiper, who's the president of the Shedeur Sanders fan club, and everybody else, there's Google Mel Kiper talking about Quinn Ewers after the Michigan game. He says, Quinn Ewers just solidified himself. He's the number one guy in the draft. He was unbelievable. His pocket presence, all these things, right? Then, unfortunately, he tears his oblique. In the Oklahoma and Georgia game, 99.9% of quarterbacks would have never stepped back on the field with that injury. But Quinn does, because that's what he did in high school. He had a double hernia surgery and came back 4 weeks later and led Southlake to the state championship. Most guys missed 12 to 16 weeks from that surgery. So, Quinn's toughness backfires on him a little bit because he doesn't want to miss games and he doesn't want to let his teammates down. So the oblique injury happens. He doesn't have the greatest game against Oklahoma and Georgia. Unfortunately, the Georgia game, the entire NFL is there. And I think that was another part of it, that they could not shake that game out of their head of what they saw. And then, the last game of the year, Ohio State was good, wasn't great. And those things happen, and I think because the expectations have always been ridiculous for this kid and probably higher than anybody ever again because of the recruiting status. So this is the first time in his life where he can just go in there and be a football player and not be expected to start day one and not expect to go save a franchise and not expect to, be the guy. So he can. He was at my office today doing Zoom call with the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, and he's already putting in the work and starts Thursday, and he got his install today, and he's ready to go.
I know that I always thought he was tough as hell. And again, did not know a lot of the stories. Even the fact that he's tough as hell to get 4 wisdom teeth pulled before the draft. So he came, there's certain guys, that's just in their mentality. They don't want to lose their job. But they don't want to not play. That's the main thing. They're like, that's their arena. Had the backup quarterback been Bill Smith, would he have still played, or did that Arch shadow, and Arch never created that himself. He's unbelievable how he's handled everything. Did that force him back, maybe in your opinion, sooner than he should have come back?
No, the Arch thing was never anything to Quinn. Quinn practiced with the kid, and he knew what he was. It was Oklahoma, Red River rivalry. Quinn Ewers has been a Texas fan since birth. He knows, how big of a game that is. And then Georgia, first big SEC game at home, under the lights. Those are hard games to say I'm going to sit out. This kid was rehabbing 20 hours a day, had, bought himself this machine to sit at home and rehab with, and when he's not at the facility, doing it at home. So, there's a lot of things that people didn't understand or know that Quinn Ewers put himself through to continue to play. And, it's funny when all these tough guy fans are on Twitter and calling them names and saying all these things. None of those guys they probably wouldn't get out of bed and go to work in the morning with a torn oblique. So what this kid did and the toughness that he showed, and then he's finally starting to get healthy, and then he gets a high ankle against Kentucky, this was another thing. They said it's a 6 to 8 week injury. He played 6 days later against A&M. Why? Because he grew up a Texas fan. He knows what that game used to be in the history, Texas and Texas A&M. He wasn't going to miss that game.
You know what I remember about the A&M game, and I don't know if anyone ever brought this up. You mentioned that he had a big scramble. I don't know if it was 17 or 25 yards in that game early, where I was like, my God, he's running on a bad ankle, and he picked up a critical first down in that drive. Does he regret not? Well, no, that's not the question. Did he ever seriously consider going to another college football program because of the kind of money he would have made, or was that ever even discussed?
No. So there's people obviously in the college football world that reach out about players, and it's not just Quinn. I have other quarterbacks that I represent.
Still there, Ron?
We lost him? See if Verada, we lost your audio. I want to get a couple more questions in to see if we can reconnect with him, Garrett.
Yeah, I'm trying here.
All right. We'll get back. I'll ask the question again if we can get him back on. I'm not sure.
You there, Ron?
Hold on a second. Let me text him and see. He may not even know that he's off right now. Let me text him and see. We lost you. We lost your audio. Sorry, I'm just trying to do this at one time. This is multitasking. Got him?
Let's just break.
All right, let's break. We'll come back. We also have much more to get to around the corner, and let's see if we can reestablish with Ron Slaven, NFL agent. I want to get back to the possibility. Did Quinn Ewers ever think about playing one more year in college football because he could have made a bucket load of money? This is 365 Sports.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
All right, we're back again. David Smoke, 365 Sports, Craig Smoke, and Ron Slaven, NFL agent, with us. We were discussing some of the journey, the story, and more with Quinn Ewers, who's now a part of the Miami Dolphins. My question:
Where did I lose you?
Well, you really had just started to answer the question about, was there ever any kind of legitimate discussion about him coming back for one more year in college?
Right. So the way the calendar sets up, it's almost impossible when you're in the college football playoff. But around Thanksgiving, you get a couple phone calls. I have some other quarterbacks I represent in college football schools that are looking for quarterbacks. Reach out, say, hey, are any of these kids going to go in the portal? Quinn obviously would have been the top guy in the portal if he decided to do that. And when I brought it up to Quinn, Quinn said, no, I have no interest in going anywhere else. I want my legacy to be left to Texas.
So
2 days,
yeah,
hold on,
go
2
ahead.
days before the Arizona State game, they reached back out. They're like, this is going to be a significant amount of money. And again, I'll talk about it. They beat Arizona State. Quinn would have had to commit to one of these schools in between Arizona State game and playing Ohio State on the 10th, because at that point, the schools are like, look, we'll wait for him, but we can only wait so long because they got to be enrolled in school by the 15th of January. So what are you going to do? Go tell all your teammates, hey, I'm after this. If we don't win this game, I'm heading to Miami, or I'm Notre Dame, or I'm heading to wherever else. Like it's not doable. But he didn't want to do it anyway. But the way the system is set up, it's not doable. And it's funny because because of his fall in the draft, everyone's like, oh, he lost money. He could have done this, that, the other. He couldn't have. I mean, it just wouldn't have worked. And if he did do it, I mean, can you imagine the backlash he would have got from everybody in the state of Texas? Like, oh, he's already committed to another school. He's not focused on the Ohio State game. This would have been a bad look.
I have to ask you this question, and it's not tongue in cheek, but you mentioned Miami and Notre Dame. Notre Dame was still involved, I think, at the time. You didn't just accidentally mention a couple of programs because, right?
No, I mean, everybody knew that those schools were looking for a quarterback. There's a reason Carson Beck ended up going to Miami.
Yeah, no question.
I mean, he was probably their next choice.
All right, Ron, one more question, and thank you, buddy. And the reaction in our portal about this, it's a great story by Todd Archer. And I saw your name, I immediately said, hey, I'm going to reach out to you and talk about the business. What is the business like right now? With the way college, you just mentioned timelines, and it's a mess. And yet again, players, it's great. The college players are getting paid, but what is it like then for you with clients, whether they're in college or in the NFL? And the fact that I even say that an NFL agent has clients in college is like, for a man my age, it's like, what did I just say? But what's it like right now?
I think it happened too quick. There is no plan, and it's still not well planned out. The rev share issue obviously is still in the courts. There needs to be contracts signed by players. There needs to be some sort of commitment to keep kids in school. It kind of is reflective of how AAU basketball, I always say AAU basketball ruined the NBA, because you could play on a team in the morning and then in the afternoon you could go play for another team. And there's no continuity anymore. The team part of it is kind of thrown out the door. The same thing is going to happen to college football when they're reshuffling their rosters every year with 20 or 30 kids. And the mid-major schools are they're going to die because they're developing kids, and then the best kids, you're at North Texas or you're at a Northern Illinois or a Miami, Ohio. Those coaches are developing these kids, and the minute one of them is good, they're leaving to, Northern Illinois is going to lose a kid to Wisconsin or Purdue. North Texas is going to lose somebody to, Texas or A&M. Jeff Traylor, you guys have had him on. UTSA, their best kid, they're going to lose them. So there has to be more rules and regulations of some sort to control it. I also think the money side of it, and universities are bringing in freshmen. A 5-star kid is getting $500 to $1 million. 4 stars are getting $250 to $500. 3 stars are getting around $100,000 to go. I think that's an issue too, because you might have a 4-year fourth year senior who's put in his time and making $50,000 a year here and there, and then you have this hotshot freshman come in the locker room and they got $800,000 contract they're showing everybody. So it's different because we always talk about rookies in the NFL and all the mistakes they make financially at 22, 23. Now we're talking about 17 and 18-year-olds. Do they know that their collective money isn't taxed? And then they got to have the right accountant. There's a lot of unregulated NIL agents who haven't done what I've done for 26 years. They just jumped into this thing as street agents, and they're charging these kids 20%, it's robbery. So I could go on and on. I could talk to you guys for 10 more hours about this. There's a lot of issues out there. I feel bad for these kids. I feel bad for these kids' parents. I mean, I just talked to a dad the other day that I helped them, do their NIL deal, and the dad already has a sour taste in his mouth about the school that his kid committed to, because before they brought me into it, the dad was doing the negotiating, and no matter how you look at it, when it's your kid, you're going to fight tooth and nail for them, and you're going to feel disrespected. But it's the school is a business, and their negotiator was hired to negotiate deals. So if I tell you your son, we only have 250,000 for you, but that they have twice that, well, what is he? They disrespected us. They did this, and that. No, they just want to see if you're going to bite at the 250 offer. I mean, they're trying to save money so they can take the extra 250 and give it to another kid. So it's ugly for a lot of people, and I think it's great the kids are making money and they deserve it. The NCAA has, made all this money over the years off the names of these kids' backs. But again, it's so unregulated. There's so many of these guys out there that are taking advantage of kids. I think there's going to be a ton of IRS problems, because I don't think a lot of these kids put the money away to pay their taxes because they don't have the right people around them. They don't have the right accountant. I mean, in the NFL, you have to file a tax return in 9 different states, because every road game you play,
That's right,
a tax return. So these kids are doing the same things. Like, I could go on and on. There's a lot of issues that aren't being addressed. When I represent kids, I approach it. I have a 9th grade son at Southlake. The same way I would do something for Ace, I do for my guys, because if you treat them the way you treat your own kid, you're probably going to make really good decisions for them. Unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people think that way, and they're just looking for a quick buck, because these NIL agents that don't represent NFL players, they got a short window to make money off these kids. So if they can get them to jump in the portal 3-4 years in a row to make their 20%, they're making these kids move around and jump around, when the reality is, if you stay at the school you committed to and you're getting developed there and you're good enough to continue to make NIL, don't jump around just because you have some 24, 25-year-old street agent telling you to go make an extra 100,000 somewhere else. It doesn't make sense to me.
Last question, and a quick answer too. Thank you for being patient when we lost you a little bit. On a scale of 1 to 10, legitimately, Miami gets Quinn Ewers. They had Ollie Gordon go in the 6th round, the running back. On a scale of 1 to 10, once he was available and once they took him, what was the reaction in a positive way from the organization that he was available to get him? Because they could have drafted him before, but they got him in round 7.
I don't think they went into the draft thinking they're going to draft a quarterback. And when I started communicating with them in the 5th round, they were like, we can't believe he's still there. So then after they took Ollie Gordon, I was like, you guys got to take this kid, because Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer were at the pro day last year watching Xavier Worthy and JT Sanders work out. And they talked to Quinn the whole time, and Quinn threw the ball that day. And Quinn this is the same reason the Saints were really high on Quinn, because Jeff Ireland, the general manager, was at the pro day. And he texted me afterwards, because I had Byron Murphy, Jonathan Brooks, JT Sanders, and Christian Jones. I had 4 draft picks at Texas. And what Ireland texted me was, the most impressive thing I saw today was your quarterback. So he left an impression at that pro day, and I think McDaniel and Greer saw him sitting there still, and they're like, we can't pass on him.
Yep.
So my reaction was, it was a gorilla lifted off my shoulders. I felt bad for him, because nobody should have had to go through what he went through. But again, he ended up in the right place, and now he just has to take advantage of it.
Well, you did what you could, man, and thanks for the truth. And also, I know that's your client, and how you feel about him, and from the time you knew him when he was a kid, a young man, as you mentioned. Thanks for the story, the backstory, the insight, and hopefully everything gets cleaned up in the NCAA. But I doubt it. I don't know if they'll ever get that done. Thank you very much, Ron. Have a great rest of the week.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ron Slaven, NFL agent for Quinn Ewers, and you heard about the others of who he's represented at the University of Texas. We had to blow through a break, or we added one, but I want to do this. Craig's off the radar. We're going to move Craig Ludwig back a little bit, then John McClain. And so, Craig, Garrett, you want to take a little mini break, and we'll come back with Off the Radar, and I'll text Craig Ludwig. We want to get a full throttle of Off the Radar back in a moment.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Car Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Save big with Employee Pricing Plus at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive home a new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram with smoking hot deals that slay the competition. Only at Allen Samuels. You're going to love it here.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smokes Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome back into 365 Sports. About an hour to go, and it's time for Off the Radar here as we take a look at some stories just going on in the wide world of sports, if you will. And we will start off with a team that is near and dear to Smokey's heart. And I wish Paul was here to talk about this as well. But just wanted your thoughts on it being official that Gregg Popovich's time as head coach at the Spurs is all totally over. And they have made it be known that he's still going to be around, but just a couple of days ago, actually it was more like 4 or 5 days ago, the Spurs announced that Gregg Popovich, longtime head coach, would be stepping down after 29 seasons, which is incredible. He will be transitioning to a new role as their president of basketball operations. Even made the crack at the press conference. We had all the team with him, including former players and current players, which, by the way, they're walking into the press conference, and I know we all know this about Victor Wembanyama, but when you see him against even like a Manu Ginobili or those guys, what an alien, man. Like, I mean, he's just an alien-looking guy, and I don't even mean that negatively. It's just like he's so tall. It's insane, but interesting to see the mix of old and new Spurs that were there to support Gregg Popovich at the recent press conference. He's clearly still dealing with the effects of a stroke suffered last year, which caused him to take a long leave of absence and eventually did lead to the fact that he didn't coach the remainder of that season, and also swirls into this year where he eventually is now just officially stepped down. But, they have already determined that assistant Mitch Johnson will be taking over on a permanent basis. But just your thoughts on a longtime Spurs head coach, championship winner, definitely a unique personality and his own guy. Like he's not a carbon copy of somebody, or he's Gregg Popovich. He's very unique, for better or worse, depending on your taste. And he's a great head coach, but obviously health just catches up to everybody.
Yeah, no, he's a legend. He's a Hall of Famer 10 times over. Brought some great moments in my life. I'm a lifelong Spurs fan. Well before Gregg Popovich, I even knew who he was. With the great names that they had in the past, starting back with George Gervin and company. Unbelievable. He also was blessed with dudes. I mean, Duncan, Ginobili, David Robinson, among many others, and Tony Parker. But you know what? Most great teams end up with great talent, and it's up to the coach to try to manage all of them. Two things. He was very opinionated about our country and about politics, and that kind of started to sour me a little bit, and not even because of where my taste is when it comes to politics. Steve Kerr's that way too, but as a basketball coach, unbelievable. One of a kind. The one trend he started that I hate, not hate, that's the wrong word, is the rest day that players started to get the off day or whatever it was, because I'm old school. But it ended up trying to lengthen and establish the careers longer for Duncan and all those type of guys. I hated that trend. Don't like it, but it's part of, again, a lot of things change in sports.
Yeah, I mean, he was the designer behind giving his guys off nights on occasion, just simply to give them rest, to be better prepared for what for them was always deep playoff runs at that point. So you can kind of understand where he came from, but then it did lead into you go into any random NBA game and there being a much larger percentage than there would have been prior to that of like LeBron or somebody like the best players not playing in just game 42 of the season. And so that was something that, not a lot of people were necessarily fans of, but you can understand at least where it was coming from. But I think it did set a trend that then got abused by others, as everything does, right? Like somebody thinks of something cool or helpful, and then somebody finds a way to abuse that, right? So you had people that then took advantage of that. But, Hall of Fame coach, obviously that goes without saying, but also the winningest head coach in NBA history. And that press conference yesterday, very emotional to have all the players and just all the people over the years as he was there to let it be known that his career was officially winding down. And he said that he's going to be known as El Jefe, right? To introduce himself as El Jefe. So he's going to still have a say and be a part of the Spurs organization, but it's Mitch Johnson's time with Victor Wembanyama and that young core that will hopefully for San Antonio fans, go return them to their championship glory. But 76 years old, mild stroke in November, and had stepped away after that. So, good luck to Gregg Popovich and all that is ahead of him, and hopefully that includes good health. But the end of an era that you could see foreshadowed. I mean, that it's been out there. You knew it was coming at some point in time. It's just that now it's been made official. So what a career for Gregg Popovich. All right. Meanwhile, we've talked a lot about the draft here as of late because, the draft was ongoing last week, and there's, of course, all of the weeks of buildup and all of these guys that we watch on Saturdays for the most part, getting their big opportunity. And there was the big to-do, of course, about Shedeur, but I think at one point in time we also discussed just the drafts that we'd attended or the NFL's emphasis the last several years on moving the draft around. Like the Olympics, almost, and except that it's an every year deal, but everybody who has a brand new facility or who's hoping to maybe one day host a Super Bowl or who just wants to get in on the action has been part of hosting NFL drafts. And we went to a bunch of them there for a little while. Well, the Commanders are now in line to host the NFL draft. The news last week that they're returning to the site of old RFK Stadium to build a brand new state-of-the-art stadium under the Josh Harris ownership group. You knew that with that would come eventually Super Bowl aspirations, and they made that very clear. But there's also the opportunity to host the NFL draft, and that's what's going to happen in 2027 as President Donald Trump actually made the announcement that D.C. will host the 2027 NFL draft. So the Commanders in the mix now, and maybe we make it to that one here in a couple of years. That'd be pretty cool. I've never been to DC actually, so that might be a fun trip. But so you have them hosting it in 2027, and they're already hyping it up to have well over 1 million people. Josh Harris said. Roger Goodell also echoing that we believe we'll have well over 1 million people when we come here. So it will take place, at least as of right now, on the National Mall. It'll have the Capitol building as the backdrop for the festivities behind the stage, and there's a mock-up of it that you can easily find online that looks like it'd be pretty damn cool if it goes off the way that they intend it to. So, you've had Detroit. It was mentioned in one article at 750,000 people, which was the record for the draft. Green Bay fell short of that. They had a little over 600,000. So I do believe Detroit.
The big difference in Green Bay, Wisconsin's population and Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah, so I do believe there's a good chance Detroit could still hold that record in a couple of years. We'll see. Pittsburgh gets it next year, which I think that'll be a hell of a time. That'll be a hell of a party there in Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah.
So Pittsburgh gets it in 2026, and then it'll be D.C.
Washington, D.C. Someone, Kim, just said it's my favorite city in the world. I spent 35 years there.
Really?
I lived in Virginia 4 years. My dad was at the Pentagon. And it is, there's parts of like every city that has some bad. But when I was there, my God, all the white, all the buildings, the memorials, the statues, it is just gorgeous. And then in the fall with the, cherry blossoms is gorgeous. And then if it snows, which it does occasionally, it is gorgeous with all the white buildings. I loved my 4 years there. I was just young enough to be dangerous. I think I left when I was like in 6th or 7th grade. And that's where the history is with me being a Washington Redskins and a Rangers fan, because they used to be the Senators. I can't believe, I know you went to New York, right, on a trip when you were in high school, right?
So the school that I went, it was just public school. But the school, I guess, had a tie-in with like a travel bureau, some kind of thing. So when you got to, I believe it was 8th grade, if you could swing it, then you could go on one of a couple of different trips. Or I guess there probably was one or two kids who maybe went on both of them. But the options you had was New York City during Thanksgiving, that time period, or it was Washington, D.C. during the springtime. And I chose New York City. I would again, because I just am more interested in New York. So that was my opportunity to go to D.C., and I chose the other direction, which I don't regret, but I also never had another opportunity to go to D.C. So maybe this is the one. I don't know, but there will be the opportunity for Commanders fans and everybody up in that area to take part in a party coming up in 2026.
It's amazing, Garrett, Craig. We all love that football team, but we hated them for so long because they were inept. What all is happening, it makes me like, if I see Jaden Daniels' name pop up in the chat, like the hot chat, it scares the hell out of me, because I'm just like waiting for a meteor to land. Right. But everything right now is going well. I hope to God we get to enjoy it for quite some time. The new stadium, all of this, none of this happens. None of it happens if Daniel Snyder is still involved with the franchise.
No, that big old loser somewhere, with still lots of money in his pocket, but I bet you he's miserable on the inside. I think he was all along probably anyways, but regardless, he's in the past, and they're very much about the future. So new stadium on the way, hosting the draft on the way, a Super Bowl will follow that new stadium at some point in time. Perhaps a generational quarterback based on his rookie year. It certainly appears so. So, yeah, there's a lot going on right now. And for what it's worth, Detroit, their sports commission had said that hosting the draft last year had an economic impact of $213.6 million on the city. So it is definitely a big tourist grab for these NFL cities to bring in events like the draft. And so DC is on deck for that. Meanwhile, this is a little bit more, maybe not in the more wide of interest, but you mentioned the Texas Rangers, and we have not talked about them, but they are a good team that is really struggling to hit the baseball, and so they've made the move that they are bringing in former All-Star Brett Boone to come in and be their new hitting coach, as they are one of the worst batting teams in all of Major League Baseball. They actually have really solid pitching, but they can't score runs, and so they've decided to make the move as of yesterday to bring in Brett Boone as their new hitting coach. And it is interesting that in the headlines, and I'm sure you guys see this more often, but he is replacing their offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I saw that.
Donnie Ecker.
That
so
made me look
there's
twice.
Titles like that being used nowadays. And I think there's a difference. Like one guy's the OC, and then there's like the hitting. I don't know, but it's basically the hitting coach they're replacing, and Brett Boone they're hoping will be the guy to kickstart this roster and provide them some offense after they've decided to part ways with Donnie Ecker. Boone, and part of the reason why with those titles is he is going to be working with hitting coach Justin Vielli and assistant hitting coach Seth Connor, who are still on the staff. So I guess Boone will be officially the OC, but that's still just kind of weird to see that title. But have you watched much of the Rangers this year?
Yeah. I got my hopes up because they started so damn well, and then they're going to be a good team. They don't play defense very well. They cannot hit out of a wet paper sack. So changing that makes sense because they're falling, man. They're under 500. That division is very, like Seattle's off to a decent start. The A's off. Houston, okay. But they've lost 7 of 10. They can't hit out of, a wet sack. And that has been – I love the way they started because they were winning. And, yeah, sure, because they were winning. But it seemed like they were winning games 3-2, 4-1, that way.
It just sucks to start losing games 1-0.
And Seager and, they just not good.
So they're 3.5 games back. It's not like that's a juggernaut of a division by any means, but they are a game under 500. So before that sinks into Angels territory where you're really just a bad team, they have made that move, but I was curious how much you've seen. And, man, it's
too much lately.
It's hard watching bad offense in any sport, right? I mean, if it's shots clinking off the rim or it's an offense that can't get near the end zone or get past the goal line, like just bad offense is terrible across the board. And the Rangers have one of the worst offenses, if not the worst offense in baseball right now. So can't get worse, basically. Meanwhile, close it out with the playoff schedule as tonight got a couple of games over in the NHL. Carolina is at Washington. That is game 1, second round Eastern Conference as the Hurricanes and Caps kick off that series at 6 o'clock on ESPN. And then following that, as you have a little hockey doubleheader on the 4-letter network, you'll have game 1 of the Edmonton Oilers at the Vegas Golden Knights. That's out on the western side of the bracket. So a couple of game 1s tonight. And the Dallas Stars, who I know we're going to talk about in just a few minutes, will be back in action tomorrow as they start their series with the Winnipeg Jets and get that off the ground. Meanwhile, tonight in the NBA, you've got the Pacers at the Cavaliers. That is coming up at 6 o'clock. Game 2, Indiana leads 1-0. And then in the nightcap, Western semifinals, game 1, Golden State at Minnesota as that gets underway at 8:30. So that's a lot of star power there in the nightcap. Both those games on TNT and Max if you're a full-time streamer at this point. But, yeah, lots of game 1s. There is that game 2, Indy and Cleveland, but not a shortage of options if you're just a sports fan in general and you especially love the playoffs. You got that both tonight in hockey and hoops, and so there's a few things off the radar.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate that. Thank you very much for being patient. Hope you enjoyed what we've had so far. We're not done. Craig Ludwig, former longtime veteran defenseman in the NHL, was a part of the Dallas Stars for a nice chunk. He will join us on that series with Winnipeg and also looking back at the great weekend in hockey. John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, also will join us at around 5:30 or so. Emery Winter, working on 365 Sports tonight, every weeknight, 10:30 on the CW. Andrew Valage put up a couple of really good polls. If you have participated, we'll have the results of those at the end of the show. And Garrett Ross running through a little bit of drama, but we got it done. I appreciate our guests being patient, including Ron Slaven. All right, when we come back, Craig Ludwig, this is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store. Specials this week, a lot of steak. Select choice and prime New York strip on sale. Bacon ends and pieces. I try to stay away from some of that. It's $1.50 a pound, but when I walk in there and they got that in the butcher shop, I don't want to just grab a big handful of them, put them in some sort of a grease pan, and it's delicious. If you've never had bacon ends and pieces, they have those right now on sale. Spare ribs, St. Louis and baby back style and pork ribs, chicken leg quarters, raw coli sausage, coil sausage. Good God. It's not coli. That's not a good thing. And 10% off all of their fresh shrimp. Waco Custom Marketplace, full-service butcher shop, full-service bakery, and all the knickknacks you need in between at 425 Lake Erie Drive in Waco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
We discussed yesterday the unbelievable weekend, depending on which team you like, over the weekend with the last-second goal by Winnipeg to force overtime and what Dallas did in the third period against Colorado. Craig Ludwig, longtime NHL defenseman, joins us, 2-time Stanley Cup champion. And great to have you. Thank you very much for being a part of the show, Craig. What is the difference, and can you try to describe the difference between regular season hockey and the Stanley Cup playoffs?
You play 82 games to be one of the 16 teams that are left standing, and then pretty much you start all over again. So anything that you did during the regular season when it comes to the amount of goals you scored, your plus minus, your penalty minutes, whether they're good or bad, you pretty much start all over again. And you cross your fingers that you've got everybody healthy, which nobody is really ever healthy at the end of a regular season. But you want them as healthy as they possibly can. And for the Dallas Stars, they may catch a break. They may get one or two of their top players back, one forward, one defenseman, back at some point during the playoffs. There's a chance that Jason Robertson actually plays game one. Miro Heiskanen, best defenseman on the team. I don't know if he's going to be in game one, but we're expecting to see him sometime in the series. So I would say that the biggest thing that you're hoping for is health, and that you can any of the things that you did well during the regular season, you hope that you can carry them into the playoffs.
So Craig, fellow Craig, by the way, it's always nice to talk to another Craig, but there it is the other night. They're down 2-0. It looks like the season's coming to a close, right? And then magic happens, basically. You've got the incredible performance, obviously, Mikko Rantanen, and just all that came with that, the fireworks. What were your impressions, your thoughts, your emotions, all that came with that mesmerizing win the other night?
Well, I'm saying I had something to do with it. At the end of the second period, we were in the studio, and it didn't look very good. I was trying to figure out what do we do and what do we try to change the luck and everything else. And so I did the baseball version of the rally cap, and I was wearing a jersey that I had. It was a game worn jersey from when we had beaten the Avs back in '99 on our way to the playoffs, and we had to go Game 7 with them also. So bottom line is, I took the jersey off, I turned it inside out, and I put it on backwards. So I did everything I possibly could, and we had to do a little video of it. And so all of a sudden, apparently, I ran into somebody in the Walgreens store today that said they did the same thing. So, I think it was a storybook kind of a situation. Everybody can kind of remember, maybe not everybody, but Mark Messier, back when he was with the Rangers, had made a comment after, I don't know if it was game 6 or 7, but that they were going to win that game. He actually comes out and he gets a hat trick and they win the game. They go on to win the Stanley Cup for the Rangers. So, we had talked a lot about Mikko Rantanen when he was here now versus playing for Colorado, that it would be the hardest and the worst thing probably for the Avs if he was the guy that they would have to shake hands with going through that line after a game 7, after a long series like that. And it's exactly how it played out. It was like, and Rantanen been getting better and better as he came here to Dallas. He had a slow start, obviously, not playing with, players that you ever played with. You only play against them, getting to know them. I mean, there were some Finnish guys that he knew, but I think that he came together at the right moment. And when he took over in the second period and got the team back to a goal down, then he ended up tying the game on a crazy kind of goal. And then he ultimately got an empty netter. So there goes that handshake line and everything, and all the people there were a lot of people here that were kind of second guessing what Jim Nill did with that move. And we were all kind of like, just tap the brakes. He's a good player. He's a proven playoff player. Probably one of the top 3 to 5 players in history as far as playoff points per game in the playoffs. So he put the cape on and he came out. And so it was a storybook ending for that. Now they step in against a team in Winnipeg that top centerman out of the lineup with the concussions as of right now. Their top defenseman out with a possible shoulder injury right now. So things seem to be lining up for them, at least from the standpoint of an opponent. And it's something they had to go through in this first round without one of their best forwards, their best defenseman. And so it might be lining up just right for this team at the right moment.
Craig Ludwig with us, a longtime NHL defenseman, a part of the Star Stanley Cup in '99, won another Stanley Cup earlier back in his early career in 1986. So you mentioned it's a difference in the physical, whatever. Does anything a team does against another team, for example, Winnipeg won 3 out of 4 against Dallas in the regular season, how does that affect, if at all, if anything, a postseason or Stanley Cup playoff series?
Well, I think for speaking for Dallas, that they had a hard time with Winnipeg this year. And, when you get to the playoffs, you drill down on games during the regular season. I mean, there's always scouting for all the teams that you're playing, but you're playing, when the seasons are compressed, they were with the Four Nations Cup and everything else that was going on this year when there's Olympics, it's hard to practice. And so you're trying to keep your players fresh and as healthy as you possibly can. And you don't look at a ton of video. You get to see it the day before about, hey, here's what this team does, power play, penalty kill, special teams, those kind of things. In the playoffs, you basically dissect everything. Now, what will happen with Dallas, that they've already done it. They've gone through everything that the games in the regular season where they gave them problems. And now what they'll do, and they'll have they've already have all that stuff on file. They know those things. They know that they were the best team in the league, when it comes to the regular season. But now it's a different drill down, and it's every player, the tendencies, the characteristics, what they do in every certain setup they have on the power play, how they kill penalties, what they do through the neutral zone. And what Winnipeg did this year, as a whole, as a team, when they have everybody healthy, they defend really well. And they had world-class goaltender. Now, he really hasn't had the kind of success that he and the team would like over the last 4 or 5 years when it comes to playoffs. And I think that especially this year, Connor Hellebuyck did not look like he did in the regular season. There were holes in him. It took St. Louis 7 games to get close to knocking him out. 2 minutes to go in the game, and he's sitting on the bench. They're down by a couple goals. They find a way to win that hockey game. So I think for him, his mindset right now is probably, I owe my teammates. And they bailed me out of what would have been a disastrous situation because, they're picked to go to the finals. So I think that we're probably there's a good chance we're going to see the real Connor Hellebuyck, who gave up only 2 goals a game throughout the course of the season, which is a kind of a crazy stat. He's going to win a Vezina Trophy. Obviously, his name is going to be in the hat for the Hart Trophy. But right now, all those kind of things go out the window. And again, it's a different lineup that they have now compared to what they played in the regular season. But you're not going to approach the game that way. You're going to approach the game as if every player is in their lineup. And they'll have to be aware of my opinion is what this team does. Winnipeg is they defend well. The biggest problem that Dallas could have is they've been a team that can play east-west. They have a lot of skill, a lot of talent. They come across the offensive blue line. They can make the extra pass, and they can score goals. They've tried to eliminate a little bit of that, I think, in Colorado. And if they do too much of that against this Winnipeg Jets team, when they're coming back into their own zone, the Jets will pick those passes off, and they can turn them in counterattack. So I think they have to play a north-south kind of game, and they have to direct a lot of pucks at the net. And I don't think it's any different than what Winnipeg does. Dallas will have their hands full. Different from the first round, they have a team that's committed to go to the front of the net. And so the defensemen, especially for the Stars, will have to be a group that can keep people away from and out of the eye line and the eyesight of their goaltender, Jake Ottinger.
Craig, I know this morning Peter DeBoer was out there making some line changes. What are you really he was saying it was for consistency? What are you looking for in those shakeups?
I don't believe him.
There you go.
It's games they play. I mean, right now, the top line with Granlund and Hintz and Rantanen, I don't know if you touched that line. I mean, they were dynamite through this round. And they're 3 Finns. They know each other well. They seem to come together. They had Rantanen playing with Wyatt Johnston and Jamie Benn. It didn't seem the right fit on that line. Pete's been using different combinations, so he knows what he can go to. The other change they have right now is if Jason Robertson does come back and play in game 1 tomorrow night, they've got him on a line with Jamie Benn, Wyatt Johnston, and he's playing the right wing, which he's never played the right wing. So, and if you're coming off of an injury, he's a goal scorer. I mean, it's great to get a 40 goal scorer back for sure. Is he going to be the same Jason Robertson? No, it's going to take him some time to get into the playoff role, and he's just coming back from a knee injury. So, but he's never played the right wing. So, and he's not the strongest of guys when it comes to getting pucks out of the zone when he's on his left wing, his natural side. So I really don't see him playing a lot on the right side. And, we see those things happen. Against Colorado, they had their captain who came back after 3 years. They had him playing in Dallas in game 2, I guess. He took the warm up and never played. So, and I don't even know if that's really makes a big difference. You kind of plan for all different kind of situations. So, but I do think that Robo's, it sounds like he's going to be back tomorrow night. And if that's the case, good. And maybe what they do is they get him a little bit of ice on a different line, and probably they got Jamie Benn moved up to the second line, which makes sense to me because that's with Duchesne on one side or in the middle of the ice, and then Tyler Seguin on the other side. But there's a couple guys that are bulls in this series, and it's Lowry from the Jets and it's Jamie Benn. And so to get Jamie up on that second line, Lowry's generally a second line kind of guy, and they can get those guys to go head to head. I think you kind of neutralize each other one, because one guy's going to be looking out for his teammates, the other guy's going to be looking out for his teammates. So maybe that's what they're thinking right now. But again, everything's going to change. It'll change from game to game, period to period, and possibly shift to shift. So that's the adjustments. That's the thing is the teams that get to the end of the line, they were able to make adjustments in game and in between games, and more importantly, in games when they can see a matchup happening or a line that's not clicking at that particular moment. So all these line combinations that we see, we did the same thing. I mean, you would say, these three guys are going to play together, and they'd even go in warm-ups together before the game, and then they wouldn't play together in the game. So they get the other coaches writing down changes and who we're going to match up against. So at the end of the day, whoever executes the best is going to win these hockey games.
You mentioned the defensemen earlier, and what they've been able to do and step up in Miro's absence has been really impressive. But I was reading earlier today, and it said Thomas Harley has skated almost 29 miles in 7 games. And he's still playing at a high level. How can you put in words how difficult that is?
Yeah, you know what, the good news I'd say for Harley is he doesn't necessarily play a physical kind of game. I mean, he's a big kid. He skates great. He's got great skating ability. So it makes it easier for the guys that can skate. So, and the difference between him and Heiskanen is Heiskanen gets himself out of the defensive zone with his legs. He skates a lot of pucks out. He's a great skater, one of the best in the game as a defenseman. But what Harley does is he makes the proper passes. When Thomas Harley got onto the power play, when Miro went out, the power play got better. And that's only because he shoots the puck. And Miro was more a distributor. And it's easier to kill penalties when you got the puck just kind of moving. The top guy is moving the puck left to right. Versus Thomas Harley, he walks and he finds lanes and he plays a little bit more direct. And then everybody else on the ice knows that pucks are going to the net. They start crashing the net. Then they're in the areas where the rebounds are. So, but I would say for Harley, I mean, he's only 24, 25 years old. He's in great shape. He's a young kid. And like I said, his ability is to be able to skate, and he skates effortlessly. And he really doesn't get into a lot of tug of war. And so it's not that he won't play physical, but he doesn't have to bang around in the corners as much, because usually those kind of guys, they have the puck is on their stick. And so they're skating a lot. They don't have to defend a lot when they got the puck.
Craig, appreciate your time as always and the experience and knowledge. So you won 2 Stanley Cups with Montreal, then 99 with Dallas. It's the greatest post-game ceremony in all of sports, in my opinion. And I never played the game, but I've always just been in love with the way that occurs. What is that like?
Well, it's really good when you're on the right end of it.
No, well, yeah, absolutely.
I won a couple college championships, a couple Stanley Cups, and I've never got to shake a hand at home. It's always been on the road. And I am here to say that it's probably nicer. It feels better to be on the road and shake hands when you're on the winning side of it, especially, if you've won the championship. But I would say it's the ability to let everything go that happened, and things go to a different level in the playoffs. And if you have any friends, you don't talk to them usually, and you're not afraid, and you're not beyond running them through the boards too, because we know what's on the line. And you'll see the laundry list of players. Like you'll find, for St. Louis, for instance, there's going to be a laundry list of players that are going to come out with the list of their injuries that they've had. And you'll go, how the hell did they play 7 games just, through the playoffs? So I just think that, it's the hardest, in our opinion, it's the hardest trophy to win, and what you have to go through in order to get those 16 wins. And it's the war of attrition. And, I talked a lot about the defensemen as a group, and you start the game and you start the series and things like that with 6 defensemen in the game. You're not going to finish with 6 defensemen at the end of the year if you're going to go all the way. You're going to go through, 7, 8, 9 defensemen, because there's going to be injuries. Same things happen up front, and it's about the guys that can step in for those, whether it's 1 game or 3 games, and step in and play. For me in the first round, probably the most consistent, best line for the Stars has been their 4th line. And it's because they play in straight lines. There was not east-west in them. They caused the most havoc. They had a lot of things that happened around the net. Blackwell on the forward line scored an overtime goal. So, usually it's the blue-collar guys at the end of it. You're going to win Stanley Cups and championships because of your best players, but you won't win them without the rest.
Last thing, in that game that won the Cup against the Sabres with obviously the Brett Hull goal, Sergei Zubov played 54 minutes. It went triple overtime. Hatcher, Lettinen, and Matvechuk all played 40-plus, and then even Daryl Sador, 39. You were on the ice, the goalie, of course, Ed Belfour, 114-plus minutes. Where were you when Hull scored? And what's the longest game you've ever played?
I think I played a 4 overtime, but it wasn't the playoffs. So a 4 overtime one, but this is obviously the longest one that I played in the playoffs. And I had you know what? I remember I had just come off the ice, I think, and I couldn't breathe, and so my head was down between my legs, and I just heard everybody yelling and screaming. So I could barely get out there. But yeah, it makes everything worthwhile when you win. I mean, you can imagine. And there were players on Buffalo's team that played the same amount of minutes, and I can promise you that all of their bumps and bruises hurt a lot more than ours did when it's all over with, because it's you know, I hate to say it, it's such a painful thing to play that whole 2.5 months or whatever it is and come up a goal short.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Great to see you, Craig. Enjoy it. Still involved with doing a lot of things with hockey. A part of two Stanley Cup championships, 86 and 99. Last year he played. He won it with the Stars. When we come back, Hall of Famer John McClain. This is 365 Sports.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
1, 2.
I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. Keeps me coming back. Cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy, last name Barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Paul is out, back. I think he's back tomorrow. He'll be here for the rest of the week. Craig Smoke and David Smoke, 365 Sports. We've had kind of an interesting blend of guests. We just had Craig Ludwig, longtime NHL defenseman, NFL agent Ron Slaven, and also Jeff Traylor early on in the show, and now the Hall of Famer in John McClain joins us. John, thank you very much for your time. So now that the draft has been over for a couple of weeks and everyone kind of knows who they are and they have their undrafted, whatever, free agents, et cetera, where are the Texans with what they were able to add to the pie and expectations moving forward?
David, they went into the draft. They needed an offensive tackle and they needed a wide receiver. They've got the wide receiver, Jaden Higgins, who is a mirror image of Nico Collins, 6'4", 215. Also in the second round, they got the Big Ten Offensive Lineman of the Year in Ariante Erzuri. And then they ended up in the third round, Jalen Noel. Both their receivers from Iowa State, both had over 1,100 yards, and Matt Campbell's pro-style offense. So the person happiest with their draft is C.J. Stroud. Now, in the off season, they traded for a guard and signed 3 free agents, 1 guard and 2 veteran tackles in Cam Robinson and Trent Brown. So they've got 1 for sure returning starter in their line, Titus Howard at left guard. And then they got Juice Scruggs, a former second-round pick going into his third year. They're hoping to play right guard. Center is wide open. So they did what they wanted to do, and the player I'm most intrigued by is a running back, Woody Marks from USC, who caught 83 passes as a sophomore at Mississippi State, where he played until he transferred last year to USC and looked really good running a system like the Texans' new offensive coordinator, Nick Caley, will run. He worked for Sean McVay, and he'll run a style similar to McVay. Coaches tell me that McVay's system puts a lot on the quarterback mentally. A guy like Matthew Stafford has no issues with it, so I'm going to be following closely to see how C.J. Stroud, going into his third season, can handle all the extra things he's going to have to deal with at the line of scrimmage.
John, I know we're starting off talking Texans here, and I know you love your Astros, but what was the feeling around Houston about the end of the Rockets season the other night?
Everybody was disappointed, Craig, because they come back from a 3-1 deficit to tie it in Golden State with an impressive performance. Then they come back here and stink it up. And everybody was disappointed. Everybody's blasting their leading scorer, Jalen Green, who stunk it up for all but one game, saying trade him, get him out of here. They got a lot of young talent, and they're going to get Phoenix's lottery pick. And right now, it's 17% to be in the top 4. I thought it was very interesting. Last night, the NHL had its lottery about who's going to pick where, and the Islanders had a 3.5% chance of getting the first pick. And guess who got the first pick? So people are fired up about that. Last year, the second overall pick, guard Reed Shepherd, he played a bench role behind Fred VanVleet, whose contract is up, and they have to decide do they want to pay him $40 million a year to come back for his third year with the team. So the bottom line, Craig, is you look back on the season, I thought after they went from the worst in the league for a 3-year period to being 500 in Ime Udoka's first year as coach, this year they would sneak into the playoffs, probably lose in the first round, and next year would be a better barometer where this franchise is. But they had the second best record in the West, and they made a great run against a team that has the greatest shooter in history, one of the best playoff players in history, and maybe the best defensive player in history. So there's no shame in losing to the Warriors, but people still are devastated.
Justin Tucker, maybe the greatest kicker in the history of the game as far as accuracy, length, big dime. You know, there's Vinatieri among many others, and I'm sure I'm missing a couple. I only mentioned him. Gone. Ravens said we're done. Not every team would do that, or was this just something there was no choice?
Well, first of all, the general manager, Eric DeCosta, tried to say as a football decision when everybody knows he's lying. You know, they praised him so much you wouldn't know that he had these 12 or 16 charges. And one of the things that's different than Deshaun Watson, you have women, they named where the places where they were, where it all took place. The women, they told other people after that said it happened. And they also, the Ravens said they weren't going to do anything till the NFL completed its investigation. Well, they haven't. So they lied about that too. And, but they drafted a kicker from Arizona. They've moved on. You know, it's going to be really tough when he gets 5 years from now, assuming his career is over, that on the whole Pro Football Hall of Fame selection committee, we're not supposed to take into account anything that happens away from football. In other words, if O.J. Simpson came up and I believe he murdered 2 people under the bylaws, I would have to vote for him to be it. I don't think I wouldn't do that. And I can't wait to see how it plays out. Remember last year, Brandon McManus, the kicker for Jacksonville, had 2 women saying he groped them on a flight to London. The Jaguars cut him. He reached settlements. And all of a sudden, charges went away. Green Bay signed him to a long-term deal. And Tucker, I guess there's so many women, he couldn't reach settlements with them. But I'm guessing his career is over.
Any thoughts on Matt Stafford re-upping with the L.A. Rams?
Well, we knew that was going to happen, Craig. And he's not trying to get $60 million a year like Dak Prescott. You got to think it's kind of a team-friendly deal. But if he's not 38, he's about to be 38. But he hasn't shown any signs of letting down. And remember, in the playoffs last year, it was the Rams, not the Chiefs, that gave the Eagles their toughest battle, and that was at Lincoln Financial Field. So I think instead of people picking the 49ers again, which nobody's going to do, everybody's going to pick the Rams now to win the NFC West.
The off-season schedule obviously has changed in recent years. They practice less. There's less mandatory this and that. How much, John, has it changed, and will it ever go back? They'll never reverse course, right? They'll never end up with more camps, et cetera. And is there ever debate about whether or not there's enough of what they do in the offseason?
Coaches don't like it at all, especially for offensive linemen. They say offensive linemen need to hit. They need to put on the pads. Basically, the off-season program is for the mental stuff. Walk through, it's easy. Nobody hits each other. You can't even put on a shoulder pad in the off season. And that's the way the players have wanted it. When their collective bargaining agreement expires, the NFL gives them all the time off they want so they don't have to give them more money. And so it works out great for the players. They say they need that time off. Training camp, no more 2-a-days, no more 3-hour practices where they beat the hell out of each other in the sun and the heat. It's not like that anymore. And it will never go back that way because the union's not going to say, give us $1 billion and we'll put the pads back on us and let's have an off-season program where we can hit each other. That's never going to happen again. I can't believe you haven't asked me about the next draft you're going to go to in 2027.
No, I am, because I also saw a list. I saw that you had retweeted it too, that I was stalking you about the quarterback class next year, which looks like it will bounce back up after this one was kind of subpar. But in Washington, D.C., in a couple of years, this is everything that right now the Harris and the Redskins Commanders ownership they touch right now seems to be gold.
I'd love to know what Dan Snyder thinks about all this. He spends most of his time in Europe, especially London, but it's got to kill him that all these things he wanted and couldn't get for obvious reasons. Josh Harris and his group are getting them. And Green Bay was not big enough to set a record like Detroit did. Everybody tries to outdo each other. Well, in Washington, where they're going to have it on the mall, they can put hundreds of thousands of people. I can't wait to see it because I'm guessing it will be the most well-attended in history. As far as those quarterbacks, a lot of people think the top pick is going to be the one that beat Baylor in the Houston Bowl.
Yeah,
I wish he had gone out a year earlier. Really, he would have been better off to come out after last season, where he might have been the first overall pick over Cam Ward. He certainly would have been the second quarterback pick, and it would have been high. And but right now, it looks like a great draft with 5 or 6 number picks in the first round. And I saw a list today. Sawyer Robertson was number 10 of returning quarterbacks. I saw another one. He was number 8. The bottom line is the Bears have a really good quarterback coming back. And just think, if that kid last year, I forgot his name, hadn't gotten hurt Would Robertson ever have played?
Yeah, DeQuan Finn. I think eventually that would have happened just because of production. But yeah, he did get hurt. The transfer from Toledo, and then Robertson took over, and Sawyer played hurt because of his foot, ankle, maybe it was the ankle. And imagine what he can do if he can stay healthy as far as his mobility too.
Their offense is going to be fun to watch with the line, with the skill position players. I thought Jake Spavital was not going to come do anywhere near what he did. He did an outstanding job with that offense. Now they got to do an outstanding job with the defense.
Yeah, and they've been working on adding different pieces for Aranda to get that done. Bill Belichick book is out. This thing has just kind of been weird.
Weird. That's with a capital W. I love it. I think it's fascinating. I can't get enough of Bill Belichick, the ultimate control freak, being ordered around by his 24-year-old girlfriend. I don't care if she orders him around, if he wears a dog collar. I don't care if it's in private. But the fact that she's trying to be his publicist, his agent, interject herself in things that she has no clue about, which is backfiring on him, and it's tarnishing his legacy, and that's not good. There's a great story in Front Office Sports today. They called 5 crisis PR people and asked them what they would do, and they all gave different versions of the same thing. But the bottom line is, get her out of your professional management team and hire people that know what they're doing.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Second Bears.
John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist with us on 365 Sports. Now, no top 5 for I guess the rest of, well, no, today, obviously. Here are the polls. Is Brett Yormark the right leader for the Big 12? There were four options. Absolutely looks that way. Not sold. Too early to say. I know it's early, but I would not have even thought about the last two. Looks that way. I said absolutely. I voted in the poll, and an overwhelming 2/3 of everybody at 137 votes said the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he is as well, and I don't know what more he could really do at this point to, further prove. I definitely don't think it's too early. I think he's, been at the helm of now multiple, additions and multiple seasons, and so I think we got a pretty good gauge on kind of how he operates and who he is. So I don't know what more people would need to see, but to each their own. So yeah, I'd go with absolutely, and looks that way, makes sense. Not sold. I those last two, I don't know. Yeah, again, what he could do. Honestly, I know some people try to portray him as a snake oil salesman. I think sometimes snake oil salesmen want to try and portray somebody the way that they actually are, quite honestly, online at least. But yeah, he's rubbed people the wrong way in some cases, but I think in certain instances, it's been always for the right. It's been refreshing actually to rub some of the people the wrong way, because for a long time you felt like the Big 12 leadership maybe wasn't strong enough or standing up for itself or doing what was in the best interest of the entire conference. I don't think you really have any doubts about that now. You may have doubts about his method, like private capital or whatever, but I like the fact that he's just kicking the tires on every idea imaginable. Some of them will be great. Some of them won't. Some of them will work. Some of them won't. Some of them will actually get executed. Some of them won't. But I think he's doing anything and everything to turn over every rock to try to make the Big 12 as good as it can be. And I don't know who else could do a better job.
I don't know who I saw this. It's one of those sayings from somebody that became a billionaire or somebody that became incredibly successful, didn't have to be financially. You have to fail to learn how to eventually win and enjoy it if you do win. And he's not afraid of ideas to try to help this conference get better. Number 2 poll, Clemson Notre Dame starting that 12-year series in 2027. Will that series evolve into one of college football's premier rivalries by the end of it in 2037? Absolutely. 19% maybe, and unlikely, split almost down the middle, 43% to 38%. That's a rivalry is usually a long-term thing, but you know what? There are some that become rivalries because of how teams are successful during a certain amount of time. And so Notre Dame and Clemson, 150 votes. Craig?
I mean, I would probably go with maybe here. I definitely wouldn't go with absolutely, because I'm just not completely sold on that, but I'd go with maybe. And I can certainly understand the unlikely, because maybe you're of the belief that it just, it's not going to be that emotional or supercharged, or you just feel like it's got to be more than a decade's run of games to put it on that top shelf. So I'm right there in the middle. I think it certainly won't hurt, unless just one of them ends up beating the dog mess out of the other one every single year, but that's highly unlikely. So I think this has got the makings of being a newer, maybe rivalry in the making. I think the possibility is there, certainly.
Yeah, and if it means the winner, whether it's during the regular season, ends up in the playoff, or they end up meeting twice in a year, that can always just add to the mix. Emery Winter, thank you. Thank you to Garrett Ross. Thank you to Andrew Valade, our great sponsors.
That super
Appreciate
chat right there
them.
at the end that just popped up.
Oh, we got another one, Garrett?
Yeah, one just popped up there as we were talking. So, yeah.
Bobby B.
Yeah, shout out to Bobby B.
John McClain, superb out, as always. Thank you for a great show. We had retired stockbroker Kim Coulter. Thank you for your super chats on our guest that we had on the show today. And for Craig Smoke, I'm David Smoke. Back again tomorrow, 3 o'clock. Enjoy 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 tonight. This is 365 Sports, and have a great rest of your evening.